2006. Bud, can you fill me in?
2002.
2002, thank you.
And
Bud, were you,
stop using
did you have anything to do with that treatment plant?
No, I didn't, the only thing that I knew about it was with the reports I read on it. It just said it didn't work. There was no documentation to back up why, or really a good reason why or anything. That's why we wanted the professional people to come in here and help us start it up and make sure it is going to work for it. We're not 100% certain it's going to work by the documentation I've seen.
Could I?
Yep. Councilman Smith? Thank you, Bud.
I'm going to be very careful because I've gotten these from 3 different sources. But one of the former employees that worked there in a capacity that should know, we had Carl Smith go out and we bought chemicals for the plant, and the former employee told us we had over $200,000 that we spent to bring up and redo the treatment plant to get it to the point where it needed to be able to treat water. What happened is when they started to redo that and come online, what you call polymers stuck in, it's a DE filter, or in other words, earth filter. And the filters were clogging up because of the amount of chemicals being pushed through it, and staff worked 24 hours a day just keeping those filters clean. But the engineer at the time went through that very systematically over about a month or so and got it to be where at least 2 of the former employees told me that it would be, we should be able to bring that line up pending what we need to do with it. That it shouldn't be that big an obstacle because it was ready to be put online, and it fell through the cracks when we had change of administration. And so that's where I understood it to be. So, but I don't know, I'll talk to you later about it, but I think it's not as bad, according to this one person, as that we think it is.
I would agree with that statement.
Thank you.
Well, we need to get somebody here to look at that and to at least get, are we going to fix it or not? I think we need to get to that point. And so how do we get there the fastest way?
Emergency declaration.
Emergency declaration. We're able to do that. We would be able to shorten the advertisement time and the bidding process.
What? One question that I have about like an emergency, does it constitute an emergency? I have a question about that, but we will absolutely look into that possibility.
I think it's like the last time, it isn't an emergency until the day it is. And then it's too late to react. So where we've had one incident, I could look anybody straight in the face and say we're preventing an emergency by speeding up.
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, it's a level D. That's the most urgent and most dire situation, and that's why you have the restrictions as they are today. I think we can make a very good argument under the statutes that this is dire and then therefore do an emergency. And then I guess have our engineer and staff tell us what can we do, 2 different projects at a time after we get funding, or how we can work that. But I think legal counsel, I agree with you. I think we can do it given that we're at level D.
Anybody else?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Sean also asked me just to give a short overview of how we communicate with the public. So we do have a relatively robust website up on our, which is linked on all of our pages for people to find. We're putting out the information in as many ways. We're not just relying on Facebook or the web. We're trying to reach out. And if anybody has creative ideas about how to reach out, I'd love to hear them. One really cool thing I want to make sure everybody knows about is we have the rawlinswy.org/notify me. And if you want, you can sign up on there and get notifications about issues like this in your email or in your phone. So you don't even have to have internet to get updates from the city. And I'd also want to mention we're getting information out through the Extension Office. They're being a great partner to help with horticulture and plants and that kind of thing that they specialize in science. So we're be putting out a lot of information in cohesion with them. And then lastly, we do have our town hall where we'll have a lot of the same information, more depth presented, and then a Q&A session, and that's on May 19th at 6 p.m. So just so everybody's aware that we're going to be sharing more information also.
I do got a question on the, I think it's important that the public know that the golf course uses river water. It doesn't use potable water. That's the one thing. The other thing that I was approached on was, and I think it's in our agenda, getting into a grant so that we could purchase more trees. The guy that jumped me down at City Market was saying to me that that why are we buying trees when we can't even let the public use water to plant their grass?
And
I didn't have an answer for that one, but it makes sense.
That's not my grant, but my understanding is that it's actually a grant to count current trees, correct? No, just kidding. I'm wrong.
Okay.
Guess we'll discuss that later under that item.
Yeah, we can discuss it later. This is a question the guy asked me and I had not an answer for him, but it makes sense. Why would we plant trees if we can't allow people to plant grass?
Well, and I do, just so people don't get confused, our current restrictions do allow people to water their gardens, their trees, and other things as they see necessary. It's just the turf grass that is more severely restricted. So, thank you, Honorable Council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I'm sure we'll get into more of this on this next couple of things on the agenda. Is there anything else on the water report anybody wants to say or do? I'll give myself a minute, please. Did you have something more? Okay, I just wanted to make sure if you did. All right, so the next thing on our agenda, I will open a public hearing. This is for an ordinance for second reading and waiving the reading amend Title 1, Section 1, .08.020 municipal officers authorized to issue citations. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that? All right, seeing none, I will close that public hearing. We'll go on to the next item, which is a public hearing. This is for the second reading, repealing Chapter 13.10, Water Use Management in its entirety, and adopting a new Chapter 13.10, Water Use Management. Is there anybody here that would like to speak to that? And that is the new proposed water ordinance. Tell us who you are, and for the girls, and go ahead.
My name's Anna Rothleutner. I am here to give input on the proposed ordinance. First, I want to say that I really appreciate you guys revisiting this because I think that some clarification on the ordinance will make everybody feel better. I know people get really frustrated when they feel like things are arbitrary. But on that note, I would urge the council to remove the sod exception. There are several issues that I have identified looking at that with the language. One of the issues is the watering limits. So it specifically talks about inches and how many inches you can water per day for sod. Unfortunately, most of us don't have our sprinklers calibrated, so none of us really know how much an inch is going to be in our yard. and that's going to result in people using much more water than we have anticipated. I actually did the math, assuming that I could know that I was watering an inch, or the half inch, the quarter inch. My lawn would use over 10,000 gallons if I was granted that exception. So I'm concerned with that language, because nobody's going to follow it if we're being totally honest. The other concern I have is I didn't see any sort of language about revoking the water exceptions for sod. So if we run into a dire situation where we don't even have water for consumption and life-sustaining activities, there's no language in there in order to revoke it. And without that language, it can be very difficult to actually have follow-through on that. So that is concerning. Most importantly, I understand that there are people whose jobs rely on lawns. There are people who care very, very deeply about their lawns. There are people who invest quite a bit of money in their lawns. But at the end of the day, if we can't get drinkable water to people, nobody's going to have the option to have an exemption. Nobody's going to have the option to ignore water restrictions. And honestly, nobody's going to want to live in a town that can't reliably provide consumable water. And so I am concerned that having this exception erodes the urgency of this situation. It's very important for us to come together as a community to conserve water, and I believe that granting exceptions will cause people to be frustrated. It will feel arbitrary. It will feel like the city's playing favorites, and that's not something that we can have if we're all going to pull together. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? All right, thank you. I will close that public hearing. The next thing on our agenda is citizens' participation. This is normally limited to items that are not on the agenda because they can be discussed later. We do have a 5-minute limit on there. So if you would like to speak to us about anything that's not on the agenda, now is when. All right, seeing none. We will move to the next item on the agenda, and this is a proclamation. This is the City of Rawlins, Wyoming proclamation for National Police Week. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. And whereas law enforcement officers are the guardians of life and property, defenders of the individual right to be free, warriors in the war against crime, and dedicated to the preservation of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Rawlins Police Department unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore I, Terry L. Wycombe, Mayor of the City of Rawlins, call upon the citizens of Rawlins and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 15th through the 21st, 2022 as National Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in so doing have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and scrutiny of all citizens. rights, and security of all citizens, I further call upon the citizens of Rawlins to observe the 19th of May, 2022 as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who, through their courageous deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty. And let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. Dated this 3rd day of May, 2022. There is a next thing on our agenda is another proclamation, and this is a City of Rawlins, Wyoming proclamation, Economic Development Week, May 9th through May 13th, 2022. Whereas International Economic Development Council is the largest professional economic development organization dedicated to serving economic developers, and whereas the International Economic Development Council provides leadership and excellence in economic development for communities, members, and partners through conferences, training courses, advisory services, and research, in-depth publications, public policy advocacy, and initiatives such as the Accredited Economic Development Organization Program, the Certified Economic Developer designation, and the Entrepreneurship Development Professional, and whereas economic developers promote economic well-being and quality of life for their communities by creating, retaining, and expanding jobs that facilitate growth, enhance wealth, and provide a stable tax base. And whereas economic developers stimulate and incubate entrepreneurship in the order to help establish the next generation of new businesses, which is the hallmark of the American economy. And whereas economic developers are engaged in a wide variety of settings, including rural and urban, local, state, provincial, and federal governments, public-private partnerships, Chamber of Commerce, universities, and variety of other institutions. And whereas economic developers attract and retain high-quality jobs, develop vibrant communities, and improve the quality of life in their regions, and whereas economic developers work in the City of Rawlins within the state of Wyoming. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City of Rawlins recognizes the week of May 9th through May 13th, 2022 as Economic Development Week, and remind individuals of the importance of this community celebration, which supports expanding career opportunities and making lives better. Dated this 3rd day of 2022, City of Rawlins. All right. Next thing on our agenda is the 2022 Employee of the First Quarter.
I'm excited to do this. So just as a reminder, our Employee of the Quarter is decided by our department heads. We have various nominations, and this nomination for this quarter is Stevie Osborne. If you want to come on up. So I just want to say a couple things about Stevie. I've been super impressed with the way that the employee that Stevie is. If any of you have been on a water treatment tour or the poop plant tour, there's no one more excited to give you that tour. So she just does an amazing job and is such an amazing representative for the city. So I just really appreciate it, and congratulations.
Thank you.
And Stephanie has a couple things to say too.
So I just wanted to give you a little bit about Stevie's nomination, and I too am excited for Stevie every time I go out to tour, go out to have a tour when I'm introducing new people that come into the city, new employees, and Stevie's always the first one to jump up and give that tour, and I appreciate that. This is actually, we received some information from some national people and some state people, and that's what Stevie's thing is all about. Stevie has been participating in a rural water apprenticeship program. Did I say it right? Okay. And she's been participating in that for over a year now. And she's been going to all sorts of different places to learn their water systems and teach them about our water system, which is really kind of a really cool thing. And then, so she went on a little trip not too long ago to DC to go take our water, right? Is this
That was from 2020 when we won the Best
Okay.
DC Water.
Okay.
So I was representing Rawlins in DC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we received some information just from an individual who was talking about Stevie, and he says Stevie was one of our brightest moments during our trip to DC. Her story of how she came to be in water, and we'll be lucky to have her there for years, really resonated with the congressional delegation as well as the NRWA DC staff. And then going on, there was a lady called Rayada who was in charge. Rayada. She's in charge of the apprenticeship program, who received this information. But she writes back and she said, describe Stevie as our shining star. And she says that I have no doubt that she inspired many people. What an amazing opportunity for her. And I just wanted to tell Stevie how awesome she is and what an honor it is to have someone in our little community that's doing such wonderful things, reaching out to people all across the nation. And I just think that's really awesome. So congratulations, Stevie.
Congratulations, Stevie. Good job. All right. The next thing on our agenda is to present the Community Builder Award for May 2022.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, if I could ask if there's any members of the volunteer committee to join us up here, please. So, as we know, the Community Builder Award is a monthly award the city presents to local individuals, businesses, and organizations for their volunteer service, sponsorship, promotion of programs and events, outstanding service in the interest of our city, and other contributions significant to Rawlins' quality of life. So the volunteer committee would like to present the May 2022 Community Builder Award to Denise Ashline for her outstanding service and contributions to our community. And I wanted to add, before we ask her to come up here, according to the individual who nominated Denise, she is a board member of Will's Warriors, which raises money to help first responders. She also volunteers at the Senior Center as well as very active in 911 events and activities. And she also likes to spend time tutoring kids in our community. And she also used to be a local math teacher. And I've come to learn a lot of people that she was their teacher growing up in town. So anyways, Denise, if you would like to come up here, please. But could we please get a photo?
Yes.
Here, I'll take it, and then you guys.
Congratulations, Denise. Well deserved. All right. The next thing on our agenda is board appointments for the Old Penn Joint Powers Board. Councilman Smith.
I move to reappoint Glenna Coppola to the Old Penn Joint Powers Board for the term ending April 30th, 2025.
Okay.
There had been a motion made and seconded to reappoint Glenna Coppola to the Old Penn Joint Powers Board for a term ending April 30th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
Thank you. And thank you, Glenna. Councilman Smith?
Yes, I move to appoint Amanda Moore to the OPN Joint Powers Board for a term ending April 30th, 2025.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to appoint Amanda Moore to the OPN Joint Powers Board for a term ending April 30th, 2025. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right. Next thing on our agenda is another board appointment to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to appoint Robin Sarvey to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for the 6th through 8th grade youth term ending June 30th, 2023.
Second.
Been a motion made and seconded to appoint Robin Sarvey to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for the 6th through 8th grade youth term ending June 30th, 2023. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right. Next thing on our agenda is the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee appointments. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to appoint Andrew Coppola to the Park and Recreation Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2024.
Second.
Been a motion made and seconded to appoint Andrew Coppola to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2024. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
Thank you. Councilman Smith?
Yes, I move to appoint Cody Anderson to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee.
For a term of
I'm sorry, I didn't say.
ending, for a term ending December 31st, 2024.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
I just want to make sure it's clear. There's been a motion made and seconded to appoint Cody Anderson to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2024. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
Okay, thank you. Next thing is another appointment, Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to appoint Alicia, is that correct? Peterson to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2023.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to appoint Alicia Peterson. I'm sorry, she's Alicia Peterson to the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee for a term ending December 31st, 2023. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
Okay, thank you. Next thing on the agenda is another board appointment for the DDA Main Street Program. Councilman Smith.
I move to appoint Katie Smith to the Rawlins DDA Main Street Board for an in-district term ending December 31st, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to appoint Katie Smith to the Rawlins DDA Main Street Board for an in-district term ending December 31st, 2023.
Very-
Any discussion?
I just have to disclose I personally related to the applicant, so
Okay,
I will abstain.
all right.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas and 1 abstain. Vice Mayor Wells abstaining.
All right, thank you. Next thing on the agenda is Urban Systems Committee appointment. Councilman Smith.
I move to appoint Angie Kinnaman to the Urban Systems Commission for a term ending January 31st, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to appoint Angie Kinnaman to the Urban System Commission for a term ending January 31st, 2023. Is there any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thank you. I would just like to tell everybody that has applied for a board, thank you very much. The work that you all do is so important, and without the public's help, we would live in a worse world. All right, so the next thing on the agenda is reports, DDA Main Street.
Mayor, we did not have a meeting yet this month. It'll be after this meeting, so I don't have a report this evening.
Okay.
Oh, I do.
Oh, okay, she's here.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. DDA's gearing up for our summer events. We've been working on Summerfest. We are bringing back the regular old activities, and we've got some new ones on the works. Sinclair has sponsored a ropes obstacle course that everybody seems to be really excited about that. I think it's going to be a great draw. Our banner program, we've been working on that for quite a while now. We actually had to pivot. We didn't get as many submissions for the banners, the artwork submitted. So what we're going to do is phase it out. About every 3 months, we're going to submit the banners that have come in. And today I submitted 25, and we will get those back this month and have those up around the 1st of June. June 4th, we have our cleanup day that we're getting ready for, and that's about all I've got for you, if you have any questions for me.
So will local artists still be able to submit even afterwards?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Our next submission date will be August 12th, and then we'll do it
Okay,
every
perfect.
3 to 4 months, depending on how many submissions we get in from that.
Perfect, thank you.
That sign that got put up, you put up down there by the old Blake House. Today, I was with the reporters from the LA Times, and they took pictures of that, and I noticed on some of the tweets that the guy had already put out pictures of that and several other things, but I thought it was kind of funny that he got that sign out right away, and
You tweet?
anyway. Huh?
You tweet?
I do all kinds of stuff. I just don't tell anybody. I read Facebook, that's all.
We thought that was pretty unique to, well, it's very unique to Rawlins. The Lincoln Highway and the Continental Divide Trail actually overlap, the only place in the United States from Colorado to 3rd Street on Cedar, so.
And the writer, the writer, what's the word I'm looking for? The reporter, she's Louise. He's a bicycle rider himself, and he's never ridden the Continental Divide Trail, but he said after his trip up here and all that, that's his next trip is going to be the Continental Divide Trail. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Anyway, they gravitated right towards it. It was pretty awesome.
nice.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next thing on our agenda is city manager report.
I just have two items. The Sinclair and Hollyfield have reached out. I talked with Rod Taylor, and they're interested in re-entering some conversations about the sale of river water from the city. They're interested in meeting with us. They've mentioned May 10th, 11th, or 12th. And I just wanted to see, Mayor, if you or any of the council members would like to participate in that meeting. And then I can work on getting the logistics down.
I'm sure I won't be able to. I'm having surgery the 9th, and I'm not Superman, so I guess I want to go really bad, but I'll have to miss that one. So whoever else wants to go.
If it's on the 10th and 11th, I could go. I'll be out of town on the 12th.
Where's it gonna be at?
Probably just here at City Hall.
Oh, okay, I'll be here.
Do you like?
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's on the 10th, I can do it, and maybe the 11th, if I can't on the 12th.
Okay, so those three, that'd be, try for that, okay? Awesome, thank you. And then also, Nate Davison was looking to just provide an invitation if you wanted to come and visit with him about economic development ideas that you might have. And so he'll be reaching out just to extend an invitation, and you don't, if you don't wanna have that conversation, that's okay, it's just something that we felt might be beneficial, so. And-
Sean, that was mentioned today, and I have to tell you, I apologize, Nate. I wasn't paying full attention. I had 1,000 things on my mind, but that is a good idea.
Yeah, we'd love to hear some of the council's ideas especially, and I think also for Nate to be able to kind of explain some of the things that he's working on too, so that'll be coming your way.
To piggyback on his comment, we were just joking. We don't want you to carry water from the
Yeah.
from the springs to the town, just so you know.
Let me get my camera.
That's all I have.
Okay. Next thing on our agenda is city attorney report.
Thank you, council. Most of my report will be handled during executive session, but I, again, welcome any questions or requests that you have. And Councilman Weisenberg, I do still have the information you requested. I just haven't had a chance to discuss it with you.
Is that it? Okay. City council reports and direction to the city manager and attorney. Do you guys have anything? Councilman Martinez?
Mr. Mayor, I do have, last month I was riding around and we have an employee that works for the Parks and Rec. And that guy's gotta be the hardest worker I have ever seen. I mean, he was on his hands and knees, and he trimmed these lilac bushes at Bolton Park. And I'd go by there and he wouldn't look one way or another, just steady. So I stopped and visit with him a little bit. He's not very talkative, but he said hi, and I said hi, and I said, good job. Well, today I was headed to the hospital, and he was down at the locomotive down at the park by the hospital. I mean, he was on his knees working, cutting those weeds around the caboose there, or the train. And I mean, I had to stop. I nearly got on the wrong side of the road just watching him. I mean, this guy works. And so I just want to let him know that we really appreciate the work he does. It's amazing. I don't think I could compete with him. So I just wanted to bring that up. And another thing I'd like to do is that Cinco De Mayo's coming up, and we won't be here, but I would like to bring up Art Archuleta's name. Art was a city council member when I first took office in 1973. He ran a plumbing business for about 50 years and finally retired. He's 90 years old. He's a VFW war veteran, and so I'd just like to recognize him for all the work he's done for this community. And that's it.
Councilman Weisenberg?
Yeah, I just want to also piggyback on Councilman Martinez employee recognition. That gentleman is a very, very hard worker. Last year, it's the same individual. I've talked to Councilman Martinez about this individual already too. Last year, at the beginning of summer, he was cleaning the cemetery, and I believe I had brought it up to your attention, you know, for recognition then too, but he did a wonderful job. He's very detail oriented. The side of the cemetery looked the best I'd ever seen. I mean, I've never seen someone get that much leaves and everything else in the back of a truck. So he does need to be recognized some way or another.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say one more thing.
I don't know his name.
If I could just say one more thing. His name is Candido Cardenas. I don't know him personally, but he's just a fantastic worker. I have never seen a guy work. I mean, he works hard.
Yes.
Thank you both for that. And yes, Candido is a great asset to the city, and I will certainly pass that on to him.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilman Smith?
Yes, and I would like to also say I am very happy to see the improvements at Tully Park, and I think that's really kind of neat, and just wanted to do a shout out on it.
I drove up the other day, and the flowers weren't out here, and now they are, and they're beautiful. So that's awesome job.
The other thing too is Washington Park, right at the sign coming off of 16th, is it? Or, that looks good. They put mulch in there, and I mean the Parks Division is doing a really good job with all that. I don't believe they've gotten the little turnout done just yet, but it's in the works, you could tell. And you know, we talked about beautification efforts through the city, and that don't go unnoticed. It does look really good. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Moving on. Okay, so now we'll go to unfinished business. This will be the second reading of this ordinance. Councilman Smith?
I move to approve an ordinance that amends Title I, Section 1.08.020, municipal officers authorized to issue citations in addition to certified peace officers.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve an ordinance that amends Title I, Section 1.08.020, municipal officers authorized to issue citations in addition to certified peace officers. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
Thank you. The next thing on our agenda is an ordinance. This will be the second reading, repealing Chapter 13.10, Water Use Management in its entirety, and adopting a new Chapter 13.10, Water Use Management. I guess I shouldn't have said that. So I would entertain a motion.
For point of discussion, I move to approve an ordinance that repeals Chapter 13.10, Water Use Management in its entirety, and adopts a new Chapter 13.10 to address water use management and conservation, drought and water emergencies, provides for sod permits and other exemptions, establishes penalties for violations, and more.
For purposes of discussion, I'll second that.
So the motion's been made and seconded to approve an ordinance that repeals Chapter 13.10, Water Use Management in its entirety, and adopting a new Chapter 13.10 to address water use management and conservation, drought, and water emergencies, provides for sod permits and other exemptions, establishes penalties for violations, and more. Is there any discussion? Councilman Weisenberg?
Yeah, I had a lot of discussion on this the last council meeting on the first reading. I still feel the same. I think there's a lot in there about requiring people to rototill their lawn, put amendments in, and everything else. I know I received one, and I believe all the council has received an email from an individual, from the public, and with a lot of concerns, and to get the email, you have to dig it out of your junk email. So, just so you know.
Okay, thank you.
And it has an attachment to it, and it's a lot to do with different things. A lot of stuff of everybody's soil is different. It don't make sense for us to be regulating on that stuff, and also I made the concern last time that we don't have an individual that is has the education to do that. We're going off of a recommendation of I don't know what actually, and this individual is probably the highest educated person to be in a situation of such, to say what kind of soil there is and everything else. And it was brought to the attention, we used to have a place to rent equipment to rototill a lawn. So to even get started on this, you have to go buy a $600 to $1,000 piece of equipment unless you have a friend that has one, because there's no place to even rent a rototiller around here to do your lawn. So there's a lot of points in there. I understand the water situation we're in. I still stand behind what I had said the last time. I think we're overstepping our boundaries in this, and personally, I cannot vote in favor of this. I think right now we have implemented the restrictions that's currently on the books, and it also, with those implemented now, it might just stir and cause a confusion to what could be implemented later. So I think at this point in time, I can't see the benefit in passing that ordinance. I'll vote no on that. I'll just let everybody know right now.
Councilman Martinez?
I too received some, there weren't complaints, there were concerns. People that are in the lawn business have already ahead of time purchased sod. It's to be delivered so they could get started on laying sod. Sod takes a lot of water, and you can't just lay sod and let it sit there. They gotta have water on it. And so that was one of their big concerns, and then having to get a permit to lay the sod was one of their questions. I don't know the answers. I know that we have water problems and that we need to address them. All I ask is that we be fair, that everybody's treated alike, and that we should. I know we're gonna run into problems with people that are upset, but that's part of this job when you take it. You have to take the heat with it.
Councilman Smith?
If the council chooses to want to adopt and repeal the old ordinance, I have a number of amendments by striking sections, and there are quite a few, and I do have it in writing. But if it's the council's decision to not continue to work on this ordinance, but just keep the current water ordinance in place, because we're already implementing it, I don't want to confuse or change paths in the middle of our restrictions. So I'm feeling, if I were to choose tonight, well, I've really cut this and have my 2 cents on this one, I would prefer to stay with the old water management and thus work on this later on when we're not having the current water restriction. It'd be my pleasure. I mean, that was what I would suggest.
Anybody else?
I also have some concerns with the current one, but I think Anna did bring up some really good points about the sod tonight. That I think needs to be looked at even further. Maybe at a level D water restrictions, I mean, it sounds horrible, but maybe we shouldn't be planting sod. I mean, she made it pretty clear that, you know, the amount of water, the inches, I would not know how to do that.
What you do is you set a container with straight sides out in your lawn. And then when
a
it's,
ruler?
yep,
Okay.
that's exactly right.
Um,
I'm a
So-
farmer, what can I say?
yeah, I don't know. I just think it needs that, especially that section needs to be looked at, especially if we're trying to implement something, for conservation. It does seem a little bit hard to,
Well,
I don't know, we're in a weird spot right now.
I could, yes, ma'am.
I just, at the council's pleasure, if you would like to work on the new draft, that is why I have this up on the screen. I am ready and willing to make changes immediately as we discuss them. However, obviously, if there is no, changes to be made and you want to stay with it, I am prepared to move forward, to get it done as quickly as possible.
Would the council mayor want to hear what I would strike, or do they prefer to stick with the old one?
Well, can I say my thoughts? First of all, I think the old one is useful for the moment. Now, I don't know if we have to change it later on, but we haven't even really got our precipitation this year. We always get it in the spring, and so if we had to amend that later on, I would be open to that. But I mean, just like here, soil must be amended with a minimum of 3.5 cubic yards of organic material per 1,000 square feet of sod or area to be seeded prior to installation of this sod or seed. Is that what we should be doing? And then it goes on to say organic material must be worked into a depth of 6 inches by tilling, disking, or other suitable method. Who's gonna measure that? Everybody's so busy. And then it says inorganic substitutes will not be accepted. Acceptable examples of organic material are compost, aged and compost material, peat moss, and then the amendments that are not acceptable are sand, mount peat moss, fresh manure, gypsum, or lime. I mean, it just goes into so much detail. Permit for 1 inch for 3 days, ½ inch for, it's just too much. And I have to tell you, well, then there's these other conditions that come, it's too complex. And I'm going to tell you, I'm the same as Chris. I'll tell you right up, I would not vote to pass any part of this. I think the one we've got in force is one that we should use, and if we have to amend it somewhat later, I would be definitely game to do that. You can speak. You can say anything you want, but you might just make it worse, so.
So if I may, Honorable Mayor, Council, bring up a few points. So at this time, with the current ordinance that we have, there are some weaknesses in terms of enforcement. I believe it's still worth looking potentially at this currently proposed ordinance, but just take out the whole section on sod. Take out the section that discusses new seed, just delete it. And any place where it discusses sod, nix it from the proposed ordinance. This has mechanisms in it where, go ahead.
But aren't we kind of back to the first one when you do that, the one that's in force now? What's the difference, all you head shakers? You guys must go home so dizzy at night. But anyway.
Anybody like to speak?
Yeah, in some of this, we don't have any type of way to, so the sod and seeding aside, we don't have any type of way to regulate people's watering. This ordinance we have set in place right now, the 1 day a week, people can water every single day and just give us, the high one and just say, we're not gonna do it, we can't do anything about it. This new ordinance is to where we can actually impose a fine on them, and then it sets tiered rates, so however much water you're using, if you decide you're gonna go above us and do it, you're gonna pay a lot of money for the water you're gonna use, because if you use too much and everybody else is using minimum and conserving, those people should have something that we can use to go against them a little bit. and just kind of try to tame them down a little bit.
I have no problem with amending the current one to reflect the ability to enforce and clarify the days that you can and can't water, so there's no, I didn't yesterday, I did today, and all that stuff. I don't mind, I would entertain those all day long, but this other one just goes too far. And I just gotta tell you, I would just love to see the other one amended with those things you talked about.
And then with the sod and seed, that all came up because we were trying to give, with the lack of water that you can actually put on it, we're trying to give the grass that somebody put in and pays a lot of money the best chance of growing. So that's why we recommended, the fertilizer and the tilling and all that stuff. It's gonna give, with a minimal amount of water, the best chance for that grass to take fast. And that was just recommendations that we came up with that we want to put into the ordinance.
Councilman Smith first, and then
Mayor,
I'll get back to you.
let me go through all if we were to entertain passage of this ordinance before us, here are all of the changes that I would make. On section 1310.020, number C, we need to discuss if a leaking sprinkler, if the people are if they don't have the money to fix a sprinkler, what do we do? Do we continue to fine them or what? But that's something we might recommend striking due to the fact that they need to fix it, but on the other hand, do we have if they can't
Turn
fix
off
it?
the water.
Okay, yeah.
Fix it
Then-
or turn it off.
yeah, then number E, we need to quantify what private swimming pools are. Are they kiddie pools? Are they swimming pools? Or, that's something that isn't defined. Then go to 1310.022, strike the words "and seating requirements." We would leave in the sod permit so people could grow sod, maybe. I would strike number A, I would strike number B, I would strike number C, strike number D, strike E, strike F,
I would
strike
just
G.
highlight that whole.
Yeah. And then renumber I through K. And then with a mention of a fee, that's a separate resolution, but they recommended a $50 fee, and I don't think that's fair to folks. That's a little too much. So $10, $15 just to be on your radar. And then I looked at number 1310.030 and went to B, and I think this is the same as we have now with regard to the hours for watering, so I didn't tinker with that. And then I went to, under that same section, I went to the water coolers that do not recycle. That is going to be almost unenforceable because they're usually with mobile homes, and who is going to go door to door to find out what kind of air or water cooling system you have? So I'd like to strike that because it's really unenforceable. Then number 4, renumber 4 and 5. Then go to 1310.035, strike number 3, or make it consistent with the one above. I had questions on what water cured concrete is. What do you do if you don't have water to cure concrete? I'm not familiar with what they do. So I needed some explanation. That would be my recommendations if you were to continue with the ordinance in front of us.
Councilman Weisenberg?
Yeah, I'd like to speak on the current restrictions as far as there's no way to control or fine. I mean, it tells you down here there's punishable fines in the water conservation penalties in the section 13.10.030. It's in here already in our current ones. So there is a way to do that and make sure. The problem we had last time is when Mr. Carney was here and involved, he recommended a 10,000, I think is what it was, instead of the 6,000 for the usage. to increase that number. I don't see anything in the new one, proposed ordinance, that gives any kind of tiered system of usage or anything else in there as far as the old one. So there's multiple ways in here of finding individuals for going over and pay, if we do our due diligence as the city or the organization, we could figure that out through meter reading and everything else and watching those. I mean, I've talked to the finance department in the past when we had to do this last time, and they said they could see the increase in the usage. So that there's plenty here that allows for regulations put on the citizens to make them understand.
I think it's only the code enforcement officer that can actually do it now. Am I correct in saying that?
It actually does not have any enforcement officer listed whatsoever, which is how this goes hand in hand with the previous ordinance that were on the second reading.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. It's already being on the second reading, past the second reading tonight, of allowing an individual to enforce that. So we have that ability, or will have that ability.
We could, if the new one were not to pass, we could amend the current one to allow for that.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd rather.
Mr. Mayor,
And I believe also in here, it actually says that they can be issued a warning citation by a designated official with Public Works. So we already have the ability to issue that warning and then go from there after that. And that's in the current ordinance that we're using.
Councilman Martinez, you had something?
I was just gonna throw what I thought. What I had written down was, do away with section 1310-022, and go off the old one. And I think would be all right. And then, as you guys find problems, during our council meetings, you could come back and say, look, this isn't working, we need to change this, or we need to add this, and work on the old one that way. But the only section I had trouble with was that one that had the sod and everything, and the measuring of the water and all that. I think it was just, we have a code enforcement guy, and he has problems as his own. He has a lot of work to do. And so, that was would be my recommendation, and I'll let go with that.
Okay, any further discussion? Sean?
There's two things I wanted to address. One of them was Councilmember Martinez's question earlier on about businesses and the current situation right now. If I could address that real quick. In the current ordinance, it provides an opportunity for me to be able to permit exceptions, and it says any such application shall be in writing and shall state the specificity, any asserted peculiar or exceptional practical difficulties or exceptional or undue hardship upon the customer that may be caused by compliance with the requirements of this section. And it has 1, 2, and 3. Any such permit shall authorize only such activities that are the minimum necessary to alleviate such practical difficulties or undue hardship upon the consumer. Any such permit may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantial impairment of the city's water supply. And then the circumstances found to constitute such practical difficulties or undue hardship were not created by the consumer, are not due to the result of general conditions in the city and cannot be practically corrected. So I could argue that, like this gentleman, that the 307 hydro seeding, he's already purchased a lot of things, he's in the works. It's putting a hardship on him because he's already purchased it and would hurt his business. However, we have heard some residents today say that like they don't want to see any exceptions. So I wanted to bring this up because I could make that exception, but I didn't want to do that I wanted to hear council's opinion because you're going to hear from these people.
One of the folks that I talked to, apparently he goes out and puts sod on his own, And the people that he was gonna lay the sod for, they talked to him before, and he had already ordered the sod for these folks. So that would be a problem, I think. So I thought that was and then sod takes water, I know that. I know that you gotta keep that sod wet, to get it to go, so, I don't know the answer to that, but I just brought that out, that was a question that they were asking. What happens to the sod they already bought?
Well, and some of the gentlemen that were here tonight and they left, I'm surprised they did, because we didn't get to, they probably thought we skipped over them or something, or didn't understand, but they're people that are in the lawn care business, and they have, Tim called me today and he has a whole list of problems that need to be considered. You know, we can close down entire businesses and whatnot. Here's what I would like to suggest, is that we just stay with the current one, have the staff bring back the bare bones changes, maybe some tier marketing to encourage people not to use so much water. I'm telling you myself, just so you know, I'm tearing up probably half of my lawn on the west side of my house. It's not because of these water restrictions, it's because I find I can have a lot more fun with $300 than looking at lawn. So I'm gonna save my own water bill. I'm gonna zero-scape it. I think it'll look fine. I hope it'll be an example. I hope some other people will follow the lead there, but this thing just goes too far. So my suggestion is, or what I'd like to see happen, is we stay with the current one. The things that need change, let's change those. The tier marketing, for instance, the tier pricing, or whatever you want to call it. If it needs some tweaks to allow enforceability, then I'd like to see that added. But I picked the old one over the new one for today. So, any other discussion? Sean?
Is there any other feedback on the business comment that I made from the council? Because I know you guys will be the ones getting the calls most likely, you know what I mean? So I just want to make sure that you have that input, and I'll just.
But if you apply it evenly to everybody that has that same problem or close in your judgment, then I think it's our job to stand behind you.
Yeah, and I lean towards providing this exception because it's going to impact their business, and I don't want to hurt any of our businesses. That's how I lean right now.
Yep, I agree.
Okay. And then I had one other item I just wanted to share with the council too, that I mentioned Mike Hamill had reached out, and he mentioned a couple of things of concern, but he said that at one point some of the water that they used to use for watering their lawns came from well water. And so they were going to look into that to see if what it would take to get that back up and going. And I think that was great. I appreciated that thought. And then he provided me with some fields or areas that are most important to the public. And this is also something Jason and I were visiting about, that we think it might be good for maybe some of our parks that we could water a little bit more in this situation. For example, like music in the park, all of our so many residents are going to that park. Would it be okay with council if we were to put a little extra life into that for our residents, because it's an important part? And maybe like on the south side Bolton Park, so we're providing at least 2 parks where we can provide a little bit better water. Or does it give you heartburn that that we don't have that same standard for everywhere? Does that kind of make sense? And then the school district was wondering the same thing. Like, they have some fields that are just really important to them that they don't want to lose, the cost to fix those back up. And I just really am looking for your input on this.
Councilman Weisenberg?
So I've received several phone calls and they want it fair across the board, and I agree. It's an asset to our community to water the park. I agree to that. I understand that. But if my neighbor cannot water their lawn to make their lawn green, why is the city above them to be able to water their lawn. And I agree with that, and I would not recommend it, and I would not like to see that, and I would vote against any kind of change for that.
The parks belong to all the residents.
That's what I was gonna say too. Will they let us
But-
play in their front
I
yard?
mean, there's a difference between my grass being green and the Bolton Park. I don't let people come over and camp on my yard. That's why we have a park. It's a public park. And if we could do it, fine. If we can't, we just can't do it. We'd have to play it by ear.
I would say if we can maintain that asset, we should. And if it gets to the point where we just can't, we can't. Does that make sense?
We've done that before.
I mean,
I would
I can
just
tell you,
need,
we've done it before. We've been up where the
Just-
park is,
you don't have to, if you holler loud enough, you can stay
I'm
there.
very loud, and in fact, I would like to suggest that people speak into their microphones, because it's really hard to hear you. Councilman DeBari, Councilwoman Smith, I'm having a really hard time hearing you. And then on this table, you're speaking to them, but we're back here trying to listen. So if you guys would just, raise your voices a little bit. But another thing, what I'd like to say is, you know, you mentioned about the city, if neighbors can't water, you know, the city should look. I think the city is supposed to be our role model. Okay? And so if they're expecting us to follow the restrictions, they should do so as well. And if it means that we can't water, then the city shouldn't be able to water. Because the important thing is we want water to drink. You know? I said my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, thank you. Jason?
Honorable Mayor and Council, I appreciate your comments. I just wanted to bring something else to maybe further the discussion. Our Parks and Recreation Department absolutely puts public health #1, so we're absolutely on board. One thing for consideration is a lot of our park areas have trees that are actually watered by our irrigation, our sprinkler system. So one of the considerations we were looking at is, let's use Bolton Park as an example. To the north of Bolton Park is a big open field, right? To the south of Bolton Park is kind of a hill with some trees. So one of the proposals might be we only water the south portion of Bolton Park. And then taking that theme throughout our park system, we would not be interested in watering any open field areas. We would only focus on areas with trees. So let's say and we wouldn't do this at all parks, and we may not do it at all. But let's say we chose, let me give you 4 examples of parks. So I mentioned Bolton, Washington Park, just a central area, not across the road, not the southern section. That's a very heavily used park. And then we have, let's say, Rob Roy Park, the southern section. There's a lot of trees we want to save in there. We could irrigate just that section and not the open turf grass area. And then Depot Park is another option. It's a small footprint, and actually we think we might be able to water that with raw water with a truck with enough pressure to get the water out there. By doing so, the alternative is to, or not the alternative, but what we could do is then we would not water other parks and other areas. And so if you look at it, you know, if we were going to do the same as the communities required 1 day a week, we would rather do that at certain parks and then not water 1 day a week. So we're kind of using all of our water in, say, 3 or 4 locations instead of all 11 parks that we have. The other thing, so there's different categories. The other thing we need to consider is sports fields. That's kind of another sort of a separate issue. They're used May, June, July. Trees are certainly a big issue for us. We want to protect our trees. We want to get them water. I believe that we have that handled. But I just kind of wanted council to maybe look at a different way that we might consider having a few of our parks green, partially so the residents do have a place to go, but also to protect our trees. So it's a difficult situation, and I recognize that, but I feel an obligation to point out, by neglecting our parklands and our turf grass areas and not watering and allow the grass not to go dormant but to die, we're looking at 3, 5, 10 years before we could bring that back, because for one, we need to make sure we have the water, and we don't know where we'll be next year truly if we can put seed down or hydro seed. So it would be a financial impact to the city to bring these parklands back. So it's a big picture situation. I just want to try to give the council as much information as we can, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
My concern with that
first-
statement
Go ahead,
is that,
and you're next.
that residents are gonna allow their grasses to die too. Like, I mean, that's a financial burden on all of us,
It is.
so I
Well-
struggle with, let's water the parks, but not our residents that take great pride in their homes, so, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
Last year when we cut the watering down to 2 days a week, I think it was, people were very mad that our parks were being watered on the days that we weren't allowed to water our yards. I mean, that's the feedback we got, was why are they watering the parks when they're telling us to cut our water usage?
We did follow the rules absolutely last summer and watered 3 days a week, and we did not water between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. We did have
They
some
had
breaks.
pictures.
Well, but so we had some breaks, and we had some issues where, because we have a lot of parks to irrigate, where we had, valves stick open, and we were very thankful that the public contacted us to let us know, because we do want to know. We don't want our parks running at 3 p.m. But those were exceptions. Those were we did not intend to water any of our parks during those hours.
Yeah, I on our lawn, we used a lot less water last year than before because we went by the rules, and my lawn stayed green, so I was wasting water, before, and like I've already mentioned, I'm going to get rid of some of it, but I don't know that the lawn that I'm planning on keeping can live on 1 hour, 1 day a week. I just don't. I have a 1-inch tap. If I had a 12-inch tap or something, but
Somebody mentioned it early. It depends on the health of your soils and your turf grass, and our parks are all different. And our ball fields across from the recreation center are built on desert rock, and so we watered 3 days a week, and it wasn't green. Other parks, Washington Park, we've done a little bit more care with the soils there. It's a little healthier. We have some tree and some shade, so that was able to stay green as well. But even 3 days a week is really not enough
for green lawn.
for green lawn and for the life of that lawn. But one other thing I just wanted to point out on a side note, but something Mayor Wycombe brought up with your yard, and we had this discussion the other day about what council thought about having a few xeriscape examples in our parks, and we could choose one park location possibly, or maybe do it at a few different park locations where we could actually install some xeriscaping to give residents an example of something you can do, and we could actually probably even put a price tag on it and say, here's an example of what you might be able to do if you wanted to convert your lawn to xeriscaping, and just be a way to educate the public. My personal thought, if we were to do something like that, I would suggest that we do that sooner than later, so that that's in place this summer so people can look at it, because next summer we might be under some other water restrictions. We really don't know at this point. So we kind of wanted to see what council thought about putting the effort into having a few xeriscape examples in our parks.
I every square foot that you change to xeriscape's one you don't have to water, so if you would pick a fourth of a park or something to that effect to demonstrate, it would also save water. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because xeriscaping isn't ugly. It can be, but so can grass. I mean,
Yeah.
Councilman Smith.
the city used to have wells here and there, and I don't know, DeBari, maybe you could help me remember this. Did the city not have some wells around on some of our parks that may not be, or could be usable,
The only one I
or?
can think about is the penitentiary, the old pen. They got a well in the back. Now, whether it's running or not, it's working or not, I don't know.
County
It's the only
drilled
that I
one.
know of.
Yeah, so I don't know what we have out there with regard to those. I think if they're there, they're probably haven't been used for a long time. And the other thing, it's getting late and I can't think of what it was.
Quick answer to your question. I know there is a well at the cemetery. We actually looked at it with our city engineer the other day. I don't know the status of that well. The power's disconnected to it, but
And then the places that we have raw water, I don't think we need to worry about those being affected. We just use the raw water and explain to the public that it's not coming through the same distribution system, and therefore that's why we're doing it.
Any further discussion? Daryl?
No, I was just gonna, like, I agree with you guys with the, if we can only water, if the citizens can water 1 hour a day, then the parks water 1 hour a day. I do have a question, just kind of spitting ball on an idea. Would it be possible to do a temporary hose line from the golf course to the parks? One like daisy chain, this might be a question for Austin, daisy chain, wire hoses, the length to one of those parks and hook it into the irrigation system. And I know it'll cost some money, but it'll save you a lot of water.
Okay, so it's interesting that you bring that up because I was doing a drive with Cody, and you can put an HDPE line straight on the ground that's welded from one location to another. That can be done. Just here in town, the trouble is all the city the crossing of the highway, especially the state highway. We'd have to have some kind of access permit or utility.
Could you run it through the gutters or through the
Culverts?
Unfortunately, the culverts are designed for storm drainage, so their response from Whiteout would probably be a no, but it doesn't mean we couldn't potentially apply for some kind of permit for it. Yeah, there could be discussion, absolutely. And then with that, our current sprinkler systems that we have, like at the cemetery, are not necessarily set up for raw water.
Right.
And it may cause problems with the heads and whatnot that's there. And I don't know if we could have an HDPE line that is temporary fab that could handle the pressure from the golf course up to the cemetery itself. That would be quite a bit of head. I think it's almost 500 feet of elevation gain. Am I not mistaken? So with that, you'd be looking at like a 100-pound line. It might be doable. It'd be something we could look at if it's your pleasure.
Okay, any other discussion?
Can I just add one more point on the 1 day per week, and I understand that, but to throw this out there, to use the cemetery as an example, it takes, I think it's 15 or 16 hours to run every zone in the cemetery, so.
It's 1 hour per zone though, right? That's what the
Right, but
ordinance
I guess what I'm saying, it's all manual, and so we wouldn't be able to water the entire cemetery in 1 day. It's not possible. I just wanted to throw that out there. So you could water 1 day and maybe get, I don't know, half of the cemetery watered, even if it was at 1 hour. But
Okay. So the motion on the floor is to pass the new water restrictions. So would you open online voting, please?
Online voting is open.
Would this be with the amendments or the?
No, there will be no amendments. Those
But
will
this
have
is
to come
second
later.
reading. We can always, I mean.
Well, but if we vote no, listen, if we vote no now, that kills that. Then the next meeting, we can bring up motions to fix the present one. So am I logged out or what?
Probably.
Oh, no, I'm here.
Online voting has closed, the motion fails, 6 nay and 1 yay. The 1 yay was Vice Mayor Wells. The nays were the remaining council members.
All right. At this time, I will have a 15-minute recess.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We are gonna stay live with sound. We're always gonna stay live with sound. It's a paid reset.
You need off switches.
I don't know why we don't have something of such.
Probably because we forget to change it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's different. I wonder if it's like or something.
I task you with that, you and I. Or just bring it up here for a ring and we can just have 2 switches, right?
Did you see those hoses?
I kind of was looking a little, but is that what you're talking first?
Yeah, and I was thinking what you could do is I get the issue with the road. So if you can, yeah, and then just pull it out after you're done. Just, 20 yards. Yeah. And just have a tug line that drops out where it wants, and you just drop it down to the side. Or we run the river, like the creek system, run it up that, all the way up to the park. Get it right inside the and then follow the walking trail. I mean, it'd be a little bit of money, but
Go out and get government surplus fire.
probably find it all over the place.
Yeah, if they're free, what the heck, as long as they pass it. And I'm sure they pass it, but I don't know.
I mean, if they, and those things hold a lot of pressure. Because it's a million water down. To water the cemetery. It's a million gallons. That's what compost is. So if we substitute just that takes us down
And I can
that's why I was thinking the tank line.
You're done thinking,
Because you could re-filter it too at the pump and then at the head too. So.
Yes, yes. And I have the actual. Did you want me to have a bunch of basically. I didn't realize. Let me make it. So I just wanted to this is all I've got.
Council wants to do it. Yeah.
So the budget, again, it says the budget, we don't know what it's set. So like we, I don't know. So that's part of the budget. You know, or.
We could address that.
I know I did some.
Where are we going to lunch?
You said that out loud.
But my concern, well.
I think you need a little bit more paperwork on this station.
We go, we have a resource. Well, no, take for instance, Douglas goes to make it it takes him right into and you know what they did one time, they said, okay, well, we're paying for your insurance, that's fine, well, that was fine, and then I can't remember but they decided not So we have. Well, and I don't know, I just, and I do know that I sat
All right, if we can get started again.
She has a quick question.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to stay here.
Sure.
It's about the graduation banners. I'm just wondering if I'm not the district or the city, but I'm the parent that's doing the banners.
So, I'm pretty sure we're just gonna pass it.
I would think so.
I would hope so.
Since they're ordered.
Today's not your lucky
Do you
day.
feel like I should stay or not?
No, I think you're safe.
You feel like, okay.
You gotta stay.
I know, I'm like, I've been here all night.
You gotta
You're like,
stay.
it's almost 10
Stay,
o'clock.
hey, stay for it all. Stay for it all.
For the banners, for the,
Graduation.
yeah, for the graduations.
Go to bed.
I don't think she has to stay.
Go to bed. Think of me while you're there.
Yeah. I'm thinking 4:30 in the morning
Don't
early.
you dare.
No. I'm just saying 4:30 in the morning.
Oh, don't you.
No, hey,
I put 12:45.
I said,
Yeah. That's what the governor
hey,
said.
there's a lot.
At Slib, he's
I
like,
hate to
we're gonna
say
pass
it.
this. If somebody wants to get up and talk us out of it, go ahead. I'll be done.
I wish I could have, I should have reached out to you.
Like, I'm serious.
Yeah.
All right. 9:41.
Close.
And the next thing on the agenda is payroll. Vice Mayor Wells.
I moved.
We have the third reading of the ordinance for the
Oh, yeah.
unfinished business.
Where are we at here?
Unfinished business,
We're
number
skipping.
C.
We forgot C.
Oh,
Oh,
Make the motion.
see.
okay.
I
Vice
move-
Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the third reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Rawlins Municipal Code, Title 9, Section 9.28020, tobacco sales to minors.
Second.
There's been a motion, let's see where we at here. There's been a motion made and seconded to approve a third reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Rawlins Municipal Code Title 9, Section 9.28.020 tobacco sales to minors. Is there a second?
There was.
Okay.
Davari.
All in favor say,
It's on. Online voting is open.
all right.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thank you.
You're very welcome.
The next thing on our agenda is payroll. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the April 10th, 2022 through April 23rd, 2022 payroll register for $240,416.34.
Do I hear a second? Okay. There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the April 10th, 2022 through April 23rd, 2022 payroll register for $240,416.34. Any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thank you. The next thing on our agenda is accounts payable. Councilman Smith.
I move to approve the accounts payable register for the period of April 7th, 2022 to April 26th, 2022 in the amount of $871,915.89.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the accounts payable register for the period of April 7th, 2022 to April 26th, 2022 in the amount of $871,915. And let me move that over. And how many cents? You covered it.
89 cents.
89 cents. All right. Any discussion? Open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thank you. The next thing on our agenda is to approve voting delegates for WHAM. Councilman Weisenberg?
I would move to approve Council Member Dabari Martinez as a voting delegate and move to approve Mayor Terry Wycombe as an alternate voting delegate for the 2022 Wyoming Association of Municipalities Summer Convention Business Meeting held June 9th, 2022 in Laramie, Wyoming.
Second.
There had been a motion made and seconded to approve Dabari Martinez as voting delegate and to move to approve myself, Terry Wycombe, as alternate voting delegate for the 2022 Wyoming Association of Municipalities Summer Convention Business Meeting held June 9th, 2022 in Laramie, Wyoming. Any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thanks. Next thing on the agenda is approval of a MOU. Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the memorandum of understanding with Carbon County School District Number 1 for Rawlins High School 2022 graduation banners.
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the memorandum of understanding with Carbon County School District 1 for Rawlins High School 2022 graduation banners. Is there any discussion?
This is the same as last year's graduation banners MOU with one addition. The school district has agreed that any damage that may be caused to the light poles by these banners or by putting them up or taking them down will be the responsibility of the school district. So it basically puts the repairs on them if they damage it. That's the only difference from last year, and it's been approved by the school district already.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open.
I'm sorry, Nate, did you want to say something?
I didn't want to. I was just there.
Oh, okay.
Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right. Okay, next thing on our agenda is to ratify some leases. Councilman Smith?
I move to ratify 2 lease agreements from Caterpillar, 2022 model number 627K Caterpillar Scraper, and a 2022 model 816K Caterpillar Soil Compactor.
I'll second that.
There's been a motion made and seconded to ratify 2 lease agreements from Caterpillar, a 2022 model 627K Caterpillar Scraper and a 2022 model 816K Caterpillar Soil Compactor. Is there any discussion? Councilman Smith?
I just want to point out that these are in enterprise funds. It's for the landfill. They're desperately needed to meet DEQ requirements, and they're already in the budget.
Any more discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting has opened. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thank you. Next thing on the agenda is a resolution. Vice Mayor Wells.
For point of discussion, I move to approve a resolution authorizing acceptance of 2022 Community Forestry Cost Share Grant in the amount of $4,177.15, with the City of Rawlins matching 50% of the grant for planting of 24 trees in the Cemetery Urban Orchard downtown and the West End Greenbelt.
Is there a second?
I'll second that for the purpose of discussion.
Been a motion made and seconded to approve a resolution authorizing acceptance of a 2022 community forestry cost share grant in the amount of $4,177.15 with the city of Rawlins matching 50% of the grant for planting of 24 trees in the cemetery urban orchard downtown and west end greenbelt. Is there any discussion?
I just
Yes.
have a question. Is there a timeline on when these have to be planted?
Good question.
That is a good question. I don't have an answer to that.
Because this summer doesn't seem like the most opportune time to be planting trees. But it's, you know.
So, and that's a good question. If Tyrell was here, he would have a better answer. I'm guessing the fall, but early fall would be the better time. Just a few things that might address what Councilmember Martinez said. To give you an idea, each of these trees would require about 15 gallons per week. So we're looking at, for all 24 trees, 360 gallons a week. I want to point out that this is also one of the requirements of the Tree City USA is to plant more trees than we remove. Raw watering these trees is a potential, and especially if we're not spending a lot of time mowing our lawns and our turf spaces. And the other thing that I want to bring up is that when we do plant these trees, they will be connected directly to a water line, an irrigation line that waters directly to the roots of the tree system. So it's not like something we're watering the grass around to get down there. So it's a direct water source. I just wanted to add, maybe that
Somebody
answered your
mentioned that
questions.
well at the cemetery, if it was operable, and if it was, that'd be a way to do it, just set it up where that we could use that well to water those trees whenever we feel like it.
Right.
I didn't bring this up, it was a question asked by a resident, cause they seen these big signs that say you only can water, and they said, well, here they got these big signs saying we can't even water our grass and they wanna plant trees. That was what he told me, and I said, I don't know anything about it.
We did have a meeting, and our city engineer, Austin, actually walked us down there to kind of look at that well. He might want to add to it. I don't know when the last year it was operational. All the power has been cut to it, so I don't know what it would take, and I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add about bringing that well online.
Would you like me to speak?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. All right. So very quickly, with the current setup that we have for the existing well that's on the south center side of the cemetery, we have a water right of 0.55 CFS at that location, which is enough to water the cemetery. The quality of the water is questionable. That's where it may actually cause more damage to the vegetation that we're trying to water. So one of the things that we're currently looking at is getting a test for that well. We'll have to lower a rope to get a water test sample or something, because it would take about $20,000 or more to get a new transformer and a new line to it, because all that has been cut out. Whenever they did the line last, whenever the power company came through, all that equipment was abandoned. And so I don't even know if the pump that's in there is functioning. So, and that could be an additional $5,000 to $10,000. So I just wanted to put that before you to.
Another thing I thought, don't we have a truck with a tank that we could get river water and water those trees?
Parks Department has one truck and one tank on a trailer. They're about 500 gallons each. Landfill has is it 1,000 gallons?
1,000 gallons.
Yeah, the landfill has a truck that's 1,000
Can
gallons.
we use that to water those trees?
Yes, and we do, and so that's what we could use raw water to water these trees.
Okay.
It'd be, just an impact on our staff levels, but it's certainly possible.
Okay. There's some ways to get around.
Because we do water our trees downtown, and in looking to what we were heading into as far as potential water restrictions, our Parks Department, Tyrell Perry, our superintendent, did a great job kind of getting ahead of things. They installed actual for lack of a better word, reservoirs on each side of the trunk so that when we do bring our water truck downtown into other areas, when we water, instead of watering the surface and having some runoff that doesn't even get to the roots, now that water will go directly to the source and right to the roots. So that will actually save time and get the water. Every one of these trees downtown is going to be very thankful of what they did
Yeah.
because they're going to get the water they deserve.
Okay.
So.
Councilman Smith?
I share Councilman Wells's concern about the timing, but what I'm hearing you say that the trees would not come in until after the water restrictions are off. We would be planning, like, you're supposed to plant sod in September anyway, and stuff like that. So if it came in at that timing, then I think that, also I understand that some of these trees are replacing some of the dead trees that we have. So I think if that is the timeline, I could vote for this and not feel bad about it. And normally I would love to just say, go do it, it's great.
Right.
But given the water restrictions, I don't think it's fair to the public.
So would it, I could offer that we will either wait till fall and see where the water situation is at that point, or if we feel that we need to get these trees in the ground, we will only water with raw water, because I could promise you that, if that makes council feel better.
That's the way to go. Use raw
You
It's
know,
not that much water.
it's a great opportunity for the city to save some money and get some trees that we need. We need to keep planting trees the best we can. But I mean, let me back up for a second. Right now, we need to protect our trees, really. So I see where the council's coming from. Protect our trees, but you want to plant new trees. So I totally understand where you're coming from.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Open online voting, please.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 6 yeas and 1 nay. Councilmember Durst with the nay.
All right, next thing on our agenda is the first reading, Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to approve the first reading and waive the reading of the fiscal year 2022-2023 municipal budget.
Do I hear a second? There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the first reading and waive the reading of the fiscal year 2022-2023 municipal budget. Any discussion? Councilman Smith?
Yes, we received the summary sheet, and looking at this, after capital, for the general fund balance after capital and subsidy is $963,276. This is an unsustainable budget. We do not have the kind of cash in this line item that we need to have. So we need to go back and look and make a decision on whether we want to pay off some debt. And every every bank that we have contacted and talked to recommends in this environment that we keep the cash and don't cut ourselves down on the cash, keep paying on the debt. But this is way too small a budget to have for cash. It just isn't going to work for us. So that's one thing I'd like to say.
So what you're saying, Linda, is not to pay the debt
Right. And
and
that's,
keep the money in the bank?
yes. Because look at what we've got, over $5 million worth of pipeline and stuff we're gonna have to deal with. And it's just not a prudent thing to do, to take our cash down that low. So we may have to cut a few things. And don't pay our debt load.
Vice Mayor Wells?
My only comment is I know that they've discussed the COLA versus the salary study. I am in support of the salary study. I know it's not the popular opinion among the council, but just wanted you guys to be aware that that's where I sat.
So in saying that, Councilman Smith, have you any recommendations for the cuts?
Well, if you can be.
And
Okay.
isn't now the time to,
Yes, and I know it's, the reason you have 3 readings is so that you can tweak this a little bit. The first thing I'd like to say is that in the dangerous building budget, the summary on the budget does not match what we have in the fund, so you need to, there's like $3,000 difference or something in that. That's petty, okay? But I was thinking that we need to cut about $200,000 from someplace. And I looked at city council for dues and publications. We have $14,000 in the line item. I wasn't sure what that went for. Is that like our publications that we're doing, or why do we have, or is that dues to WHAM, or what is the $14,000 for?
It's Wham. Wham is
Okay.
actually almost $13,000.
Okay,
Excuse me, and then when you actually go to the conventions, they charge an additional $240 for every individual that goes.
Okay.
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
In the manager's office, a question about strategic plan projects. You have $10,000. We've budgeted this year $120,000. We spent $66,000. Can you kind of tell me what we use this line item for? Like what kinds of projects?
Yeah, this current fiscal year, we had outlined like 10 different things that we were going to use it for. This year, I tried to pull that back because I think it was 120,000, brought that way down, and instead put it in different budgets. Like if it related to police and they were doing something strategic plan, it would go into their budget. So that's why it went
That
so far
10,000?
down.
Okay.
And then I just kept a little bit in there just for some flexibility to do some things for strategic plan.
So if I'm hearing that right, your 120,000 is actually 120,000 spread through each department.
No, not exactly. So basically it was just wiped it away. And then if the council wanted to do certain things in strategic planning, then we would allocate it to the department. Sorry, I can see the confusion there.
Yeah, so, okay. So I had a question with that too, is we've used a little over 66,000 in there, $66,478.48 is what it shows in the budget. What's the carryover looking like for that as of now? Are we doing our due diligence to kind of cut back on some of that stuff so we can look for some carryover possibly coming forward to next budget or this budget?
Yeah, there's still some things that we haven't spent on, like the rebranding. I think there was like 30,000 in there, and some different things, but we just won't spend it at this point.
So it's looking to be somewhere in the tune of 54,000 or so, 50 somewhere in there, carryover.
There
Right.
won't be any carryover. It'll just go down to that 10,000, and any remaining projects that we haven't done at this point, I don't think we don't have any more plans so we'll have a savings in there right now. No, there won't be any carry forwards.
And Mayor, in the IT or the information technology, there was quite a jump in line item 10-4104-207 in the information tech consultant contracts. And I didn't get a clear handle. You jumped from 150,000 to 297,484. Is there anything in that we can, kind of take out that won't hurt anything? And the software renewal, I needed to know what that was. And IT inventory, I wasn't sure what that was dealing with.
The IT inventory is just purchase of computers and different things that they need. The software renewal would be existing software that we have. Consultant, contract, infotech. This was the consolidation effort of the IT services throughout departments. But yeah, if there's any specific items that you'd like to see cut out of there, just let me know.
I just didn't know what, I remember being presented with a bunch of items in that, and I couldn't find that tonight before I came, and I just wanted to make sure that if there's any room in there that we could cut.
I think the only thing that we could
Yeah, you're right.
probably do is we could take a closer look at the software program purchases. That's item 387, because those would be new purchases. So if we wanted to pull something out, that would be probably the most logical spot.
Well, I have a question also on the software renewal, though. We're going from a little over 48,000, and we're jumping that to 93,000. That's an increase of over 45,000. So what is the new software that we're looking at purchasing that we're gonna have to purchase a renewal on?
So the software renewal is not new stuff, it's just existing items that has been consolidated into IT. The only thing that's new is the software program purchases.
Right, because you guys pulled them from the other departments and put it in IT.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to, because there's so much that went into it. It's hard to look from last year to this year, but
Was it one of the big ones with the dispatch? I remember them telling us why, but
yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
remember
there's-
the details.
Yeah, I don't either at this point.
Would the council like me to send kind of a list of maybe the program purchases, the new purchases? Would that be helpful or whatever?
That would be very helpful.
Okay.
And then going to human resources, I'm looking at travel and training. A lot of the other departments cut back. I would like to downsize that to maybe $5,000. Then, oh, you have something on that?
Yeah, the other thing in there too is, I've seen it across the board in a lot of the salaries and increases is, I just wanna make sure how we're figuring that. There's a $20,000 increase in just the human resource salaries here. It's a huge jump. Is that increase specific to a figure of a COLA in there?
That figure is if the council decides to move that to the administrative services director. So it's programmed in there currently. If it's not gonna be done, then I would recalculate it to just add the COLA in there. So, does that explain that?
Okay, going to non-departmental, we jumped from 25,000 to 49,000 for ads, dues, and publications. Is that because of legal, publication types of items, or is there any room to cut that back just a little bit?
I'm sorry, I missed your item.
Okay, I'm sorry. Non-departmental, under ads, dues, and publications, we jumped from 25 to 49,000. It's on page 13. I was wondering if we could downsize that just a little bit, or what does that include?
That's the city view, I think, right?
That's me.
That's you?
It's Rawlins Times. That's what I booked for all our ads.
Oh, okay.
All our ads, all the ordinances, all the notices and everything.
Okay,
It
so,
goes in there.
so we can't
Is it
really
on
cut
at that
that, because we don't know what that would be.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
we
thank
might be able
you.
to cut it a little bit. I will tell you, just to run, when we rescinded Title 19, it was over $2,000, and we used it as an insert to cut back on, instead of just putting it in a legal ad, it would have been almost $10,000, just to run it as a legal ad, so. The fees are real, I mean, and we're bound by statute, Wyoming statute, to put it in a local paper.
Can we talk about the city view? I've had residents talk about this. They're very thankful for it, but in a time of now, I believe that we probably should look at cutting that, or at least cutting back on that.
Maybe 3 instead of 4?
Yeah, or 2 instead of 4. I mean, residents right now, so we got 3 already, is what we're planning.
What is this?
3 total per year, so we might, I think we should look into cutting that back, and like I said, I've had residents talk about that and discuss that with me. They're obviously upset water restrictions, and here we go spending money on something like this. I get it, understand total different budgets and stuff, but if we're making cuts, I think that's a cut we should look at.
Going to page 14, just a question, but it's vehicles, so I highlighted it. And I don't know if it's a transfer to cover a vehicle in Public Works or what that line item is for. Is number 700. So
What's the full account code, please?
it is 10-4301 700, and it's FA vehicles. So I'm thinking it's a transfer or something.
No, that's, Dan is built in the capital. That's a capital item.
Well, that might be something we need to talk about because it's a vehicle. I don't know, I don't know what the shape is and something you're replacing, or, I mean, just tell me a little bit about what you've got that you really need it.
So the Public Works vehicle it's the little white Explorer that I currently drive right now. What the plan was, and it's in rough condition, it's been passed down probably 3 or 4 times now. And it has a lot of little issues that are coming up. But what was gonna happen is we're gonna use it as trade-in to give our engineer a vehicle. Cause currently we're working on a bid to get me a new pickup through Impact Assistance.
Yeah, I believe that's why I was asking the question.
So
I saw
that's,
that.
yeah, it would be a new vehicle for our engineer.
So that's the current vehicle he is driving.
He doesn't have a vehicle.
Well, I guess
Me and-
yesterday
actually-
he was driving that vehicle
Yeah,
yesterday.
me and him
but-
share it. Same vehicle.
Okay, because I was in that vehicle yesterday on the tour, and it is in rough shape. It's got leaks and.
It's
you
got
know,
an idle issue that we don't really understand. It
Yeah,
goes up
so
and down.
I understand that. It's tough to not cut something like that.
Yeah, let me go to page 17 on salaries. For building our maintenance facilities, we jumped from 133.9, actual of 139 right now, so why is it 2,000 or 201,000 something? Did we put any employees new, or is this just,
Oh, it's on page 17.
The difference, huge difference.
No.
yeah, I just kind of wanted to know why, maybe it's a new position, or somebody transferred, or?
It's not, but I can look into it.
Thank you for that. Community development. I think I found the answer to that one. That's probably, did you put the COLA raises in all of these salary line items? You
Yes.
did, okay, that answers a lot of
That answers
questions.
a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me go to 19, which is economic development. I'm sorry to pick on travel and training, but I think we had like 141,000 or something on travel and training throughout the whole entire funding. I'd like to ask if we could take that 5,000 down to about 3,000. That would be kind of what the other places are. Then let me jump to code enforcement, building code. We have one person in that particular position. I don't understand why we have 4,000 for training unless there's a
What page is
specific.
that one on?
That's on 21.
Okay, got it.
So travel and training again was, I think, maybe could be kind of taken down to about 2,000 or 2,500. Then let's move to police administration, page 22. Here again, travel and training. We jumped from 22,000 to 32,000. I know that you have to send police officers to post. I was wondering if that was why that was up $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is it with new officers coming on board.
Okay,
Linda,
yes.
can I ask a question real quick?
Yes.
Just on that. So on the training, this goes for all the departments. If we train someone and then they leave a week later, do we get our money back? Do you have a rough estimate of how many times that happens a year?
I wouldn't say very often. The one challenge we have is with our utilities department, because we have a lot of turnover in that one. But we've actually just implemented a new program with the CDL program, a process of working through that will guarantee that they'll stay for a little bit longer, hopefully a lot longer. But generally, individuals who actually go through training within our staff are generally here for quite some time.
Okay, I was just curious, because I know on the police training, sending them to do all that, getting all the gear, and then they come back, and if they leave within the first 2 years, I think it'd be great to see something that they at least got to dedicate 2 years. And then if they don't, then they pay back their training, or there's some way to recoup
Some
that money.
Prorated at least.
Yeah, something.
I know a lot of companies prorate stuff like that. I mean, is that an option? I guess that'd be a question for legal. Is that an option to just have that implemented where they could be prorated on something like that?
I would have to look at it. I think that would be very sticky. I think we'd be more likely to get some kind of commitment than to get any kind of prorated return. But I'm more than happy to look into that.
And we could definitely, in the policy changes, put something in there that's pretty common to, like, if you leave at a certain time, that you repay it.
And generally, that goes along with tuition reimbursement. You see those commitments, not so much with training. I don't see it so much with the training things, but we can definitely look into that. So.
Would you see if the travel and training, if a police department would come down maybe $2,000 or $3,000 on that 32, if that's possible, but not hurting sending our police officers to post? And then I
Post
want.
though only cost like $1,600 or something,
Yeah,
they
and
were saying. It was
yeah.
really minimal.
Okay, then on number 700, vehicles, there's $130,000. I think I remember one of those was a K-9 unit, which was desperately needed, but my question.
Two of them.
Yeah, my question is, do we need 2 of them?
Yeah.
They're going out to bid.
Yes, because they're both the same age, they both have the same issues.
Well, one's,
Right now, they're 12 years old.
Is there some, I understand a K-9 unit and the needs of that. Is there some features that could be cut down on that to reduce the price?
No, unfortunately, with a K-9 unit, it's gonna have an increased cost because we have to get additional equipment. Because if you kill a dog in one of the vehicles, it's gonna cost the city way more money down the road.
So with that, I understand that, and I don't wanna frown upon that stuff, but here's, it sounds horrible to say this, but if I lock my dog in a car and I'm gonna get in trouble. What's the same repercussions of that happening there? I mean, it's a reality that it's the same as your kid in a car at that point in time. You roll your window down some. I mean, there's features in them cars that I remember in the bid specs and stuff that increased a lot. And that's what I'm kind of talking about, stuff like that. Automatic features where stuff rolls down at certain temperatures.
The cost of the car, yes. That's built into that cost of the car.
So that stuff cannot be cut out, though, is what I'm saying.
No, it wouldn't be able to be cut out and keep a live animal in the vehicle.
Yeah, because there's a situation that they could keep them tied up where they can't go back to the vehicle. So you'd have to have those features.
2 of those is.
130,000. Okay, I'll move on. I guess we've answered the question. I guess we need them. I was hoping we could stagger one year and one next year, if at least one of those is serviceable for one more year. Then equipment, That $120,255, does that include the $44,000 on handguns? I know we started out with 44,000 plus a little bit in impact assistance to cover the handguns, but I think that was moved because maybe it got cut or something. But anyway, I just wanted to know what kind of equipment I know they needed tasers, but we already proved that. I think that came out of, I'll have to look at the capital list here in a minute.
Yeah, the capital list, anything that is on that current capital list is reflected in the budget.
It's in the budget, okay, that's,
in the
maybe I should
FA.
move to the capital list and not nickel and dime people.
Yeah.
But, okay, just a second, let me see if there's any big, huge, same with, in the 911 center, travel and training, it went from 11,700 to 25. I don't know why. Then going to the fire department, here again, ads, dues, and publications they jumped from 4,500 to 6,100. And I'm feeling like maybe there's something there that, I don't know if they have to have code books or just exactly.
We added the building official to our roster, so her stuff moved over to ours.
A building official?
Yeah, Ariel's position, so everything you've seen in the fire department, if there was a raise, it's because her code enforcement or her enforcement books went on to our budget.
Okay, I
Does
was
that make
thinking
sense?
she was still in community development.
She got moved.
Okay,
Makes sense there.
but can you get by with less than 6,100?
We took it down, I mean, we had it at almost $10,000 or $11,000, we took it down to 6,100 by taking out all of our NFPA new books.
All your what,
We don't have a NFPA library for the people,
you don't?
no.
Yeah.
So we took all those out, we requested one for this year, but basically, we'll use the online service that we have, but it's, I'll be honest with you, for guys who are studying for promotions, or they're out there doing fire inspections and that kind of stuff,
Okay, it's
having
kind
a
of,
manual there is really, really important for what, we took that out already too.
do we do any more wildlife, where we send our firefighters out for BLM fires? Do we still do that?
Yes.
Okay. It isn't reflected in here, but I guess you don't know what they are until you actually get commitments.
That's correct, yeah, until we
commitments.
actually get the
Okay.
dates and where we're going and what vehicle yeah, so.
Before we move to the next item, is there anything on 911 center travel and training? Because I know that was a question.
Uh,
So a lot of that's gonna be for recertification of the software they have, the emergency medical dispatching, emergency police dispatching, emergency fire dispatching, that they have to renew every so many years.
Okay,
I'm
so it's
guessing that-
critical to their needs.
Okay.
Yeah, don't touch it
Mr.
then.
Mayor, I'd like to, we have, Carbon County Council sitting back there by herself, and I think that she'd like to say something to us in
Oh,
regard to the
Sure. I don't have a
nonprofits,
problem
if
there.
we could do that, and so she could go home if she
Sure.
wanted to, or
Sure.
address.
My turn?
Yes.
Yeah,
You're up, Marilyn.
sorry about that,
Thank you for,
well, she mentioned it, and then I spaced it out, and I said, well, gosh, you gotta get her information that she wanted.
Honorable Wycombe and City Council. The reason I'm here is because I knew that this was the first reading for the budget, and part of the budget was the nonprofit. I know that I sent some information, emailed information to City Council. I'm here because I understand the budget cuts and all of that. I just wanted to make, I guess, a plea, because I know that some of the agencies that are being funded, we weren't going to get, I'm here representing High Country Behavioral Health, and originally I don't think we were gonna get anything. Reason, I don't know, but I was asked to give an explanation of how our system works, and I think part of the problem is we're a bigger organization now, and I'd like to make sure that everybody's clear on that. There's 19 centers, locations. but we can't get money from another location to fund our location. Okay? So any money, for the same reason that the $25,000 that was given to us last year from the city, thank you, by the way, was used in Rawlins. It wasn't used in Douglas or any, I think I was telling Councilman DeBari that like Douglas just put in, they'll get money from the county as well as from the city, but we can't use their money to offset our expenses. You know, so we all have our own budget, sort of. And I know like last year, and I didn't mention this when I spoke to council, when I was asking for the funds, last year we lost, I'm not sure if a lot of you are familiar with QOL, their quality of funds, quality of life funds, and so this helps the client. A lot of you are familiar with our Ohana house, where we have 4 residents, full-time, they live there. Well, we were able to use some of this money to offset feeding them, for instance, you know, because we gave them at least 1 hot meal every day and stuff, except for the weekends, but Monday through Friday. Well, when they cut our budget, in QOLs, we had 102,000. They took, not they, but in order to make the budget work, rather than to cut programs, our director chose to take that money, $80,000, because Rawlins had to come up with $180,000, just like other agencies had to. And so they decided they did do some RIFs, but they didn't want to cut a lot of the programs. So $80,000 of the 102,000 QOL was taken. You know, we forfeited that, you know, and so now we have a grant that's for the Ohana house, but that takes into account for rent for all of these people, you know, the lease that we have to pay. You know, I feel that we do a lot of things, and not just Ohana, but we do a lot of things like we need the money. For instance, we do a lot of group rec and soc, which, you know, they talk about dangling the carrot in order to get, you know, it's socialization. You know, this population that we're dealing with, and even some are youngsters, they want to isolate. Well, we don't want them to isolate. We want them to come to our activities. Well, that costs money, and that's not something that we can get reimbursed by the state, because we take them out to eat, you know, or like we have a dinner at the Ohana house, and it's not just the Ohana residents. Sometimes, you know, like we had pumpkin carving contests. You know, we purchased all the pumpkins, and it's not just for the young kids, because the adults like that stuff too. So, and that's stuff that we can't get refunded by the state. We get billed or we get paid by the state to provide the service, but that's paying, you know, we provide a service, so we have to pay employees their salaries and stuff. You know, it's not like a product that we're selling. So, you know, long and short, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of what we're doing in our community, which I know that a lot of you are. And Councilman Smith, I appreciate your email back to me, you know, regarding some of the questions you had. I hope I was able to answer a lot of those questions as far as insurance. You know, insurance doesn't pay for books. Insurance doesn't pay for case management. And case management is a service that we provide, linking services for the client. But insurances they don't pay for that service. So
I want you to know, Marilyn, we added back $10,000.
I'm sorry, what?
We added $10,000 back to the line item.
Okay.
We had zeroed you out because, just to be honest, it was my view that you got 3 different pots of money. You get state money, and then some of the services are paid by people's individual insurances, and then you have a sliding scale.
Mm-hmm.
So in my view, when I looked at all the other organizations, felt that you could stand on your own and would not go away if we didn't fund you.
And
But
we-
because of your answering my questions and things like that, and the rest of the council, we added back in $10,000 to help with groups or something like that.
Councilman, Vice Mayor Wells?
I've been having a lot of trouble with my emails. Do you know what day you sent that? I'd love to tell our IT guy because I never received it.
You know, what's that?
That would be great. Thank you.
I think I sent a copy to you.
Yeah, I've had the same
Okay.
issue with emails. I did receive this one from.
It was on the 19th.
Mine's been going to
19th?
junk, but I'm
Okay.
going back to the junk file just to
I
check.
looked in the junk, but thank you.
Okay. But then, like I says, I can't remember, and I thought, that's the only thing I didn't bring. Otherwise, I could have even given you a
Thank
copy
you.
and stuff. Okay, but my understanding though is that $10,000 could change between this reading and the third reading,
I
right?
think we've talked about this item more than anything else maybe, and I don't think we're in a posture to change. I think that we want this to stay the way it is. I'm speaking for myself, but I think we've got to take care of our folks, and I think, Marilyn, we did add that back in, and I don't think we're going to change it. The only thing we're wrestling with is we've got to find more money for our cash, because if we don't, we're not going to be able to operate correctly. So that's the issue. That's why I'm getting down into the weeds.
Right. the
So
other-
but I want you to know that your services are very important to the community, and I recognize that. So, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay, let's go on to,
I got some questions too, if we can get them in.
sure, go ahead.
On page 7,
Page 7.
the attorney, and I thought that what I'd like to see is that in the attorney's deal here or somewhere, that we would add some money so that we could, as a council, if we wanted to hire an outside attorney,
I think that's in there.
That's added back in under the
That's
council.
added in
Yeah,
under
we-
we did
council.
add it in there?
Yes,
Yeah.
we took
Oh,
it, we
It's out of
took
there.
out the $6,000 for
Well, I know
retreat
the
and
attorney said
transferred
it was
it.
$50,000 at one time.
You have your own line item under city council.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
$6,000,
Okay.
and
That's-
that's just so everybody knows, mostly we've gone outside for, when we deal with our 3 employee contractual, our contract, our city manager, city attorney, and judge. We've had questions sometimes on their contracts, and we don't feel it's appropriate to take it upstairs and have our legal counsel make judgments on the other 2 employees. So that's one of the examples of why we needed it.
And that's what I was thinking
Yeah.
of, but I didn't know, I, on the booklet that we received, it had 50,000 in there at one time.
Yeah, and I think
I don't see it on here.
the other issue that we haven't talked about, I gotta be very careful, there is a pending case that is in the Supreme Court, and should we not prevail, then that could be, let's say, over $300,000, and that is nowhere in here. But I guess we just pray that we win and don't address it unless we absolutely have to. But I just wanted to put that on everybody's radar, because we don't have it in the budget, but I don't want to add 300,000, because then we're really out of whack. Okay, now,
I don't know if it helps any, but the process takes a very long time.
Yes. so then we can probably.
Well, they said it would be over by the end of the year, though.
I had some questions on the.
They told us that it would be done by the end of the year, didn't they? That's the briefing we got. So, it could very well fall into that budget year.
I had some questions too on the city attorney's stuff there. It shows current year budget was 20,000. We're spending 218,000, over 218,000 already. We're budgeting 10,000 for this future year, is those figures correct, and where is the money showing that that's coming out of?
Yeah, I can address that. The court and legal fees is where, it was just put in the wrong account. It should be, the account that's right above it is where all those should be showing, basically.
The consultant contract?
Yeah,
Okay.
the court and legal should just be your Monday meetings.
7.
Yeah.
Thank you. That
Okay,
answers-
yeah, it answers a lot there. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is not.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
back to the grind. Okay, dangerous building fund, I wanted to address that, because,
that on, Linda?
is 33.
Keep us informed of pages.
Yeah, thank God we have page numbers. I don't know where my sheet is.
So,
It's this, okay, Sean, I just, wanted to go to this budget summary, go down to dangerous building fund, and then I also am at page 33, and the numbers are not matching. In other words, we have $400,000, or had $403,000 in that account. And then it shows on this paper that we spent $2,707.54 out of that account. But when you go to the actual fund on page 33, somehow we dropped that 3,000 and, or actually it was 404 on one sheet and 403 on another, and then we drop it all completely, that 3,000 completely off there. So I kinda need to have you check that for us. That's just a correction so that we can be correct. It doesn't bother the bottom line, it stays in the account. Okay.
Capital, since they're already.
I didn't pick on anybody else much, but I guess, let me check, make sure. Did you have, I asked about the roof on the, that was a big ticket item of 93,000. But I got, Lou and, Jason, answered my question. The roof really is leaking and it's got a membrane problem and it's not a repairable thing. It just needs a brand new roof, and when you don't have roofs on property, it deteriorates. So I'm gonna leave that one alone.
I'm just thinking I think a lot of stuff looked at was on capital, and they already incorporated that into the main budget.
So we just
in
cut the
different
capital
stuff,
list,
So I
yeah.
wonder if we just go straight to a capital list and look
Yeah.
at that, to kind of talk about it.
Sure, let me, make sure I wasn't being mean to anybody else. I guess, I think we need to talk about COLA versus the $1,000 things, because when you look at the bottom line on that, a flat, raise, it's not a raise, but a flat income, it's a fee across the board that everybody gets, and therefore it's not, and it saves us money. We only would have to come up with $105,000 or whatever, how many employees we have. That's another thing we should look at, I think. And that makes me sad because nobody's had a COLA raise for a couple of years. But when you look at what we need and stuff, I think we need to look at that again. Now, I was hung up on the water treatment plant trucks. There's 2 of them, one for sewer and one for water. That's an enterprise fund. So, if we needed to, not raising any of those enterprise funds, but if there is an issue, maybe check out and see if they can do without one truck. Because what usually water treatment will get the truck, and then they send their truck over to sewer. But I don't want to cut it unless we have to, but that was one area that I thought that would bring us somewhere around that 200,000 that I was looking for. Okay, with that said, I don't know and I thank you for all your indulgence. I know this is tedious. But I think that, okay, you got your list?
Yeah, I have my capital. I think I
Okay, let me
discussed
see
this
what I
with
did
you.
with mine. Okay. I think you've already answered the question on the vehicle trade-in of the Ford Explorer for 50,000. So I think we probably want to keep that in there. Now, I know this is really, really dear to some people's heart, but let me ask, when is the engineering going to be done on Davis Street expansion? Because the answer to that will tell me whether we need to leave this in or punt it till next year. Engineering?
My question is gonna be, how many times are you gonna do it?
But I just want to know when his engineer's going to be done. But I don't want to punt it, Dee, unless we have to.
No, for the Davis extension? Yeah. Okay, so, looking at it, back at the engineers and associates report that they put together for the design, they were showing, I believe, $138,000 was the total. I think last time I mentioned 120, but it keeps going up. But that's the old number that they had in the report. I didn't have it on hand at the time. But it's something that is worth looking at. As far as the budget is concerned for the item, I'm not sure what we'd like to do with that at this time.
And also, what was the timeline on getting it designed?
Right.
Yeah, that was my issue, is
Yeah.
when is it going to be done and ready to be, actually, we're under construction?
Okay, yeah. So we have a LiDAR survey. We may have to go and get some additional survey for the intersection. And to do that, that's not something I'm qualified to do. I don't have a rover. I don't have all that stuff. That's going to be probably about maybe $10,000 to $15,000 for that survey, since we already have some survey at the location. And
Okay.
then, so that process, getting a consultant on board, will probably take a few months. I don't know if we have to go out for RFP on that low of amount.
So it would not be done until spring? I mean, we wouldn't be able to construct it till spring, or will it fall past till June 30th of next year and do it next summer?
Yeah, I would really hope that we could get the design fully completed by December of this year. That's my hope, but that would
Your
be something
plate's
where
yeah.
where I would be making the design myself, unless we want to put it out for a different consultant to do it. So if it's one of the things that you'd like me to do in-house, I'd be happy to do that. We are in a position now where we have AutoCAD, and I have a license as of Friday last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And that's something we can do. I believe that we can do it. It's
Okay. Well, I guess we leave it in there? Okay. I was hoping I could stretch it between 2 years.
That's,
Well-
I thought the same thing, and I
It's been already stretched for 12
and
years,
I
so I
understand
think,
that.
I
I'm
think
just
that
thinking that if we're,
Pardon?
I'm just thinking if the design phase and everything else is gonna stretch in, and the construction is not gonna happen until next year, we fund the design phase and everything else, and then construction goes into next capital, is what I was kind of thinking, is just to see if we could reduce the capital funds at that point. I want the project done too. I just didn't.
I'm supporting it, but it's
Yeah,
financial.
I just didn't know if the time frame would allot to June of next year, or is it sooner?
with the scope of this project. I believe it could be accelerated as long as there's no right-of-way issue. I believe that we can really accelerate this project.
Stay in the budget.
Yeah, we'll leave it. Now let's move down to, I want to ask the police department about handguns, 44,430. I think you were buying Glocks. They're about, or maybe different gun, but Glocks are like $650 a piece. You have 10 officers.
We have to get handguns for all of our authorized officers,
Mhm.
which we're authorized 19, but we also have to have extras on hand. If we are involved in the shooting, those handguns are taken by whatever the investigating agency is.
we don't get those back until the case is concluded. So we have to have those on hand, so
Yeah.
we can buy a few extra. Those, with everything that we have on them and getting through, we also have to get holsters, there's all kinds of other components to that.
So it's not just $650. Okay, are you in a position to, do half and half on that? Or, I mean, what is the condition of your guns now?
The change of calibers.
Oh, okay, that makes the, yeah,
So it's,
you have to change guns.
yes.
Okay, I can't find it there then. Moving on to the fire department, replace breathing air compressor. Now, Brian, I think, is he still here? Blaine, I mean, there, I can't see you back there. But anyway, it's my understanding that compressor is specifically to refill the tanks and things, so it's a specialized compressor, and that's why it's so high at 82,000.
That's right.
Okay. All right, we'll leave that one alone. Now, recreation. I absolutely love skating and doing great projects, but I'm looking at $30,000 for skates and thinking when you weigh that against water, not any really big adjustments for anybody in the different departments, things like that. I think $30,000 would not be good optics for skates, but I don't know. We did say we would commit to that ice skating rink over there, and so kind of stuck with it in a way. Not stuck, but
I think this is roller skates.
This says roller skating.
well, I thought it was ice skates. Oh, roller skates. Okay. Well, then it's a new skating program. It's not ice skates then. Okay. Tell me about it.
One of our goals is to shorten the gap between the revenues we receive at the
Okay.
recreation center, bringing more revenues, therefore down the road in the future, we're utilizing less general fund subsidies. And so the roller skates, in my mind, is somewhat of an investment. Not only is it an opportunity to give youth and families an additional recreation opportunity, but there is some revenues that will come from that funding.
Is there a possibility that you only, I don't know how many pairs you're looking at, what you're looking at for that 30,000, is that, what could be, what are you gonna get for that in the amount of activity, I guess, is what I'm, you know?
I feel that's kind of a minimum. That's doing research at other roller skating programs and finding out, how many size 3 do you need and how many size 6 do you need, and trying to figure that out. You need more for you, less for adults. So we did a lot of research looking at other agencies and other roller skating something. So these are mid-grade roller skates. They're not top end.
So it's bringing in revenue, Jason, and so I think it's a wash. So I don't want to do it because I think it's a good project. Okay, air compressor and green spaces, 25,000. Is that absolutely needed? Because it looks like throughout, we have about 2 other compressors that we're buying, but this is a different
So I would
one.
offer this information. One of the reasons for that is we do have to rent an air compressor,
Oh,
and sometimes that keeps us awake at night knowing if we're gonna be able to get that air compressor at the right time to basically shut down our system, for not only parks, but some portions of the golf course as well.
okay.
Oh, it's a whole
It would be a
different.
shared asset between parks and rec.
Yeah, it's a specialized.
It,
thing.
yeah, sorry, I didn't know, I had that marked too, and I was just curious, can we downsize on that? But now that you're explaining it's a portable air compressor for blowing out irrigation systems, it's a lot different, okay.
Okay, and then the last comment I'm going to make, I don't think we can find too much more here. Water distribution, we've only put several meter replacements and things like that. I think they're really important to leave that in there. But my hope is that we start on the water distribution systems, that maybe we can pull some money out of, put some of that into like our, not pre-treatment, but our pipeline money, something, or ARPA money or something, so that we can do those water lines, because to me, I'm worried about the distribution system not being up where it will take new water pressures. Okay, thank you all for your indulgence. But back to how much cash do we have if we don't pay the loans?
We have a couple of things.
Yeah, I was out of making those copies, when we talked about the city view, and I just wanted to let council know, previously cut quite a bit from my advertising budget, to help offset the cost of the city view, because in my opinion, that's the most effective way we can reach our people, much more effective than whoever happens to hear a radio ad or the people that still subscribe to the paper. And I spoke with Jason, and he's also gonna make sure that, at council's pleasure, if we can cut that same kind of advertising to focus on something that we have control over and is making a bigger impact.
Quite frankly, it's well done. I think it's very informative, and I was just thinking if we're putting that kind of money out on that particular thing and cutting somewhere else where it affects the public, then kind of wanted to see if we could be judicial about it. I don't know how much it costs, but anyway, I'm not gonna pick on that, but.
I'll tell you that thing is well read. I have a lot of people comment on it, and
it's good. Well,
if in fact you can pay for it by not having other advertisement, I think it's worth it. I think it's better advertisement than most, and people do really read it.
And we are looking to sell ads in it so that it eventually becomes less of a, a cost, but that's a complicated
yeah.
thing to figure out, what's the fair price and how much will that raise the cost, so.
And then another item, Stephanie.
So just wanted to, I ran upstairs to check on page 17 for the building maintenance facilities salaries.
Okay.
So I'll just fill you in about that. It is an actual number. We've had a lot of transition in that department. So if you look at the 2020, 2021 prior year budget, it was lower there. That was because we were trying to outsource our custodial staff during that time.
Okay.
We found out that that was not an option because we never got anyone to bid on it. And so we ended up hiring back or opening those positions up again during that 2021. The same number of positions that were there before were put back in. It was 3 at the time. We have recently, through this budget, we've downsized 1 position. And so we're actually at 2 now, custodial staff. So
And that's on the frozen list, or the, that list that we
that
wanted to
attrition
have,
plan. Mhm.
But we don't, it was I don't have it tonight, but I think
Yeah.
there's 7 or 11, I can't remember, 7 positions that we will not fill because it would add too much to the bottom line. But that's
Yeah.
still frozen.
Yes,
so-
the frozen position, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so that is one. We also, as you look at the current year, that happened to be because we were filling, Cody, back in the back, was doing both roles
Yeah.
as our public works director and our building maintenance facilities person as we were recruiting and getting someone in. So that's why that one's lower also. So,
Thank you.
but that is an actual number. Just want to report
Well,
that to you.
I've
Okay.
done as much damage as I can do, guys.
And then one more thing on the HR budget, and this is entirely council's pleasure. We use our travel and training backwards, so to speak. It's not necessarily us going to travel and train, it's to bring people in for recruitment. And so it's traveling
Oh, okay,
here
that's why
to be
it's higher.
recruiting. That's why it's higher. So, but it's totally your pleasure, whatever you decide on that, but I just wanted to explain that it's
You think
upside
we're gonna
down.
have any, do you think we're going to have positions where we're gonna need to do that?
I am
or-
hoping we don't, because we have some awesome people right now. We just want them to stay.
Okay,
But
well,
you never know, like I said, so.
Okay, thank you very
Uh-huh,
much for that,
yeah.
Stephanie. Okay,
One other thing, if I may. I think there's a couple of capital items. I know that we're looking to freeze like almost everything on the capital, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the K9 vehicles, I think prior to all these conversations that we're having about freezing, I think that's already in process. Is that correct?
Canine vehicles are in process, we sent the.
it? Yeah.
It's in paper.
Yeah, it's in the paper, the bids come due.
in the police department.
And I
June
just,
9th.
And then I just wondered if there's anything else from department heads that are just like critical we have to do that we maybe not freeze.
On our firearms, on ordering those, we're looking at a price increase in that. And so the longer we wait on those, more money that goes out on those. And right now I can't order those, without getting approval. And I'm probably 120 days out on firearms just because of the supply chains. And then the holsters and all that, holsters may even be longer, and ammunition is
Rick, your guns are about 10 years old, is that correct?
2011, so they're 11 years old this year.
So that's about the life of a firearm for police officers, correct?
Yeah, we're actually past it, usually 8 years.
Okay. Thank you for that information.
Tasers are past the due date. That
Yeah,
one
so
concerns
tasers,
me.
that's another one. And that one kept hitting us with, every time we got delayed on it, the price increased on us, so it's gone up quite a bit since then. And that program again, Taser has a program where they give you 5 years
Yeah,
worth
that's what
of, assistance and liability on those should something happen. And, we're now 2 years past that 5 years trying to get these bought. So we think to get them.
Yeah, I'm not asking to cut those because I understood those to be critical because it goes to liability.
And what I'm recommending is that, you know, we're gonna freeze a lot of this, it sounds like, but to not freeze a few things that are really like.
Am I asking to freeze all of this? I didn't do that. I mean, put it in the budget and we'll see what the carryover is and stuff.
No, we asked to freeze all the capital stuff except
Oh,
for
did
what
we?
is necessary, yep.
Oh,
we
I'm
did.
sorry. I thought it was positions we were freezing.
Positions and capital expenditures.
I didn't understand that.
Remember
Oh,
that?
yeah, till we get a
Cash
cash
flow
carryover.
situation.
Yeah, thank you. And I was looking at the cash flow, too. And I think there was, we only had like 14 million coming in and we had 18 million something, so there was a gap in that.
You know what? We must have skipped something
What?
on our agenda.
Well, you signed the proclamations. You did the
Nah, yeah,
proclamations.
but that ain't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the delegation for Wham.
Well, no, we already did that.
Oh, yeah,
We're
that's
gonna
right,
do
we did. I
Indebar.
just didn't sign them. All right,
Yeah, you're okay.
never mind.
Okay. The only thing left is we're back to COLAs versus the $1,000 thing.
Where's the numbers on that?
Okay, let me find them. I have them. And I absolutely, it's in the old book is where they're at, Chris. Yeah, so we're looking at, we were at 3,
Right here, right?
okay, 210,000 for 3% versus 105,500. That's the difference.
What is it? You said,
It's basically at 3%, the total, 3% would come up to $210,577 versus the $1,000, and that's $105,000.
and out of the general fund, you're taking 169,060 is what that is, just
Yeah, just out of the general fund.
out of general fund. So if we split that out, do we know what the, can bonuses or like that come out of a enterprise fund, or does that all have to come out of general fund?
Well, if the employee is in the general fund, then we treat them, they get whatever but everybody else gets, and their money comes out of that fund, because they're
Even
an
with the
employee
bonus?
of that fund. Yeah, because it's an employee benefit.
So what would be the amount coming out of the, an enterprise fund at that point in time for, cause it shows that just in general funds ultimately is kind of what I'm reading
Yeah,
here.
here's what you've
The
got.
105,000. Yeah, but I'm
I
talking if
mean,
you're in a
okay.
bonus, if you're in a bonus of, say, $1,000 bonus, it's 105.
Yeah, I see what you're saying now.
If they do come out of enterprise funds also, then what's the amount?
That would be split out, wouldn't it?
The other thing you can, if you wanted to take general fund money and do the bonuses for enterprise, you could do that.
We can do that. The other consideration is going back to 2%, which is 112,000, and doing the 500, that'd be 52,750. I just kind of want them to have something in the Christmas stocking. But it's a matter of about $100,000 regards. That's why I brought it up. Not my fun thing to mention, but we're in a crisis situation here.
I can tell you, I would like to do the $1,000 bonus, and that way everybody gets the same, no matter what their pay scale is. The person lower on the scale gets the same amount, and that's what I'd like to see, but
Okay,
I'm not hard headed on it either.
okay. I've got to go to Cheyenne at 4 o'clock this morning, so I don't want
We
to
still
carry
got
this
an
on.
executive session.
Honorable Mayor,
Yeah,
Yes,
would you
sir.
mind if I just mentioned something capital improvement wise? The $25,000 for the holding tank at the golf course. I'm feeling more and more confident every day that we will not need to spend that
Oh,
money.
okay.
We believe we've repaired that in-house, so we're within a week to knowing for sure. But
Thank you
Okay.
for that.
Yeah,
Jason.
I actually had that marked and I missed it. I had, because I.
Well,
I
this
knew
being
you
the
had
first
talked
reading,
about
we
it.
can cut that out next time, because that,
I know you
We
had
have
talked
plenty of
about
time.
doing something.
Yeah.
oh,
Not
we do.
tonight, but.
No, no.
I mixed on the cola and the
Well, we don't have to
Bonus.
decide tonight.
yeah.
No, we
We
have
don't
lots
have
of
to.
time.
This is the first reading.
Yeah,
That's,
I'm just saying, I'm mixed on it. I understand all sides of it. I just think that if we're trying to save as much as we can at this point in time, I would look into the $1,000 for sure. I would agree to that.
Okay, I guess, Sean, in my brain, the most important thing is on that summary sheet with the antelope on it, where after we make all of these little teeny weeny adjustments and some of the other things we've talked about, that little cash thing is my most important concern. Because without cash, we don't operate well. So I think if we're not gonna pay off those debts, then that will put about $2 million back in that line item, and with that 900 and some thousand, then that's pretty healthy.
I agree.
Okay, all right, I'm done.
What's that put in if we do those cuts also? Can you give us that figure?
No, I
If
can't.
we were to
I can
reduce some of those on
I can tally that up for you.
the capital that was
Yeah,
discussed and everything.
I can put a summary together, what was talked about today, and come up with a number.
Yeah. Okay.
And I need to just say to you, Sean, that you've done, I mean, you put together a magnanimous, big, comprehensive budget for us. We've never discussed the budgets quite this thoroughly before, at least in my tenure. I do think that we've gone from being really scary to, I think, being able to handle it. I did go back to history a little bit, and particularly 2019, 2020, and looked at the bottom line on the funds there. The funds that we have on the bottom line basically equal pretty close to what was done in those years, so we're not too far away. And as I've always said, that on the general fund, and when we start adding a lot of positions to the general fund, that's when I start getting excited, because I know if we can't keep that under control 2 years or 3 years down the road, and we may have to cut a lot of people. Don't want to go there, so I think we need to be prudent. And I think everybody has put their heart into this, and they've made all the recommendations, and they've been really really heart-wrenching on occasion, but we appreciate your work and the work of all your staff.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
I thought you had to be at Cheyenne at 4 in the morning.
I do. Is it still snowing out there?
Maybe they'll close the road.
Oh, don't say
This
that.
is
My
DeBarry's
daughter
turn
will
last
kill me.
time, it's your turn this time. All right, so, any other discussion? Please open online voting. Oh, excuse me, don't open online voting, what?
The one thing that I think is important, I need to get an answer on sooner than later, is the recycle fund and the increases in recycle, because if we're gonna do that, which we kinda have to, I need to get moving on that.
I don't think we have a choice.
I think we leave it.
Want to make a
Separated.
motion? We probably should make a motion to that, to raise it $3. Is that what you're asking us to do?
I think,
Can we do that right now?
Um,
That has to be on the agenda.
Yeah, we'll have to do three readings on
Yeah, I think you're
modifying
right.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
but I just wanna get that.
Okay, but okay. So it'll be
Yeah,
on the next one.
I think we've gotten feedback from several people on whether we keep those separated out or not, and there's good points for doing both. But I think it's probably prudent to leave the recycling separate, so it can be tracked separate, and I know you don't like that, but
I don't like it at all.
but I know that your intent is that we can cover and not have, cover out of the landfill monies, enterprise funds, and not have to raise, it takes care of recycling that way. However, we've been advised it's better to keep them separate, and therefore we'll have to come back a separate motion, not tonight, but Councilman Wells is absolutely right. We need to do our fee raising in a separate resolution or ordinance or whatever we do with that.
So with that, if we're raising a fee of land, or on the recycle, what is the whole utility fee looking at, and possible fee increases across the board? That's where I was going with putting them together, so the citizens of our community did not incur a whole increase across the board on everything at one point in time. Now, I'm not saying down the road we could not increase something to make that work out, but we're already looking at an increase of $6 plus, possibly $6 plus another 10 cents on per 1,000 gallons of water. That increases the utility bill for our residents that substantial already, and now we're talking about another fee on top of that, several fees. And that's why I wanted to see it go where it was, where I had asked if it could go, so the citizens didn't have to incur everything. Councilman Martinez has mentioned multiple times about how much some people on fixed incomes are gonna struggle, and I get the times with inflation and everything else, but if we could cover it, why would we not try and cover it some to help out?
I think because when we got we were told that we would have to raise the landfill fees to cover more, and I'm going, that just tips that landfill budget a little too much to over if we put that back in there, and that's, I think, was the consideration, Councilman, that I was thinking why it'd be better to keep it separated and stop fooling around with the landfill stuff, because we're getting new leases and stuff that's going to profoundly affect that count.
I agree.
So that was my reasoning, and just so you know.
So what was the increase amount that it was gonna, I didn't see where it would turn the negative into the landfill.
That's what Councilwoman Smith just said. When we add on the 2 leases, and if we add even another lease in there, we'll be like breaking even basically. So if we were to add on additional costs, we would then put ourselves in the negative sooner than later. So we're gonna have to raise rates one way or the other basically. That's how it's going. Does that make sense?
Sean, when's our next budget? Second reading of the budget? When is that
Next
scheduled?
normal council meeting.
Normal council meeting. No special council meetings, okay. Alrighty, I'm done.
All right.
Go.
So, is there any other discussion?
I do. One of the positions, the HR specialist, we've talked about vacant positions right now, and I would like to be able to refill that position right now, and like to request that I can do that.
And I'd like to say it's on that list of 7, and that was part of that $158,000 reduction. So I don't know. It's up to the rest of the council to do what they want. I just wanted to point that out. I know we need people. We need another position. But you know, when we're cutting dimes here and there, it's kind of awkward to add anybody.
Yeah, I understand that too.
I don't
And
want you to get beat up, Sean,
It's,
to be honest with you.
for me, it's just a prioritization.
Yeah, and it's a staff you need, and that's a position that's probably, I think we should just talk about it next time. And
That
give us some
position-
time to think about it.
That position's already funded, correct?
Frozen.
It's just froze.
It's frozen.
It's part of the 11 positions, I believe. Is that how many it was? It was not, how many?
I think it turned out to be 7.
7 positions. It was,
That
not currently filled that, we froze due to the amount.
Yeah.
because we didn't have the audit, so I think if I remember right, we agreed when we get the audit, we'll unfreeze those.
No, we agreed that when we get the audit, we will look at the audit and decide whether to unfreeze them.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when's the audit coming in? It's next.
We've got to have,
We're 2
We're
audits out.
we're 2 audits out and we're going on the 3rd, Daryl. But I think what I'm hearing you say, that the next meeting, we should get the first audit in writing. And then second audit, I don't know when they're gonna get that, but like I did say, our cash carryover comes June 30th, we'll know what that is. We'll know where we're at in June or July on the audits, and then we can take a strong look at what we can do with any carryover monies that we may have. But here again, it's a permanent, one on the general fund budget, so, but I don't wanna,
We're not gonna come to a
Delay this,
decision
no,
tonight,
no.
so with that being said, I'm gonna ask you to open online voting.
but your input's important.
Online voting is open.
Mayor, may I ask something after?
Sure.
Okay, we didn't amend the budget, we just told him what we would like him to redo. We don't have to make amendments, do we? We can next time, correct?
The amendments will be next time.
Okay, thank you. Or yeah.
Why can't they be this time,
Yeah.
other than it's 11:30, but,
Because you can't actually review them, you need to be able to see them. Because right now, if we said as amended, poor Lynn would be the one stuck with all of the amendments.
Okay, thank you for that.
but she's gonna be stuck with them next time.
We're tired.
No, Sean is going to update the sheet, so then you will have.
We'll
the
have something to
budget
vote
as
on in second.
amended.
Most of them,
Thank you.
okay, all right.
Thank you for that.
All right, so the next thing on their agenda is,
Hold on, thank you. I had one person pending, so hold on one.
well, wake up and vote, whoever you are.
It was me. I wanted to make
Wake
sure
up,
something
Chris.
didn't have to be amended first.
Okay.
Wake up, Chris.
Online voting is closed, the
Oh,
motion
did it?
passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thank you.
I apologize.
Thank you all.
All right, so the next thing on our agenda is an ordinance, Vice Mayor Wells.
A motion to approve the first reading and waive the reading of the amendment Title 10, Chapters 10.02, 10.72, and 10.82, bicycles and scooters.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's been a motion made and seconded to approve the first reading and waive the reading of the ordinance amending Title 10, Chapters 10.02, 10.72, and 10.82, bicycles and scooters. Is there any discussion?
No.
Please open online voting.
Online voting is open.
He was raising his hand.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Just a tiny bit of information on this. I know we were all familiar with the e-scooters from last year, and we felt a little pressured to move it forward. And then this is just, if the council likes the idea of having those in town, this prepares, brings the ordinance into a way that it could be done. And I'm just reading a text from Pam that she had talked with Laramie, Rock Springs, and Evanston, who all did this last year. And overall, from a city standpoint, it went quite well. So I wanted to share that bit of information, and Austin might have something to add.
What's
Would
that,
you like
Des?
some discussion on the ordinance?
Not a lot, but real fast question, if I may, Mayor. What it does is allow scooters to be on the streets, and we haven't had that until now. If we pass this ordinance, that's what'll happen. Safety factor is the only thing I can think of, but
And the ordinance prevents scooters from being on sidewalks in business districts. It goes into those details about headlamps
Yeah.
and brake light or reflective tail
Why is it doing that?
and bells.
Yeah.
So all the safety's in there.
thank you. Why are we doing that?
No. I was
Your
talking to
computer.
myself.
Okay, because I was going to answer
was
that, but I
reading
won't.
this.
Okay, thanks.
Any more discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open. Online voting has closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.
All right, thank you. The next thing on our agenda is a discussion about, well, I don't know why this is on here, application for nomination by primary or,
Yes, I just wanted to let everybody know that there is 4 open positions for the city council, and then if anybody is interested in rerunning, you will need to do the paperwork. It starts May 12th and it runs through the 27th. It is, I think everybody's very familiar. In case anybody is not running, there's just giving it to the information to the public. It is $25. It does need to, the forms need to be returned to the city clerk's office by the 27th. And you need to be a registered voter, and you need to be running in the district that you reside in.
any questions? Okay, thank
I
you.
just had a lot of people ask me, so I just put it on there.
Sure.
Excellent.
Next thing on our agenda is discussion about tennis court status at Washington Park.
Poor Jason, we picked on you all night.
Honorable Mayor and Council, I promise to keep it brief. All the information is in your board packet or your council packet, unless you want a background. In a nutshell, we've been sitting on a recreation board grant since 2016. The reason I want to speak real quick this evening is I feel that we have a fiscal responsibility to council and our community to first go out to bid to see if there really are any companies that would bid carpet surface for those courts, because that would save a considerable amount of funding to either tear out the existing concrete pad or make improvements, especially with the current cost of concrete. So that's the one thing that was not in your council packet that I was looking for direction from council. I really would like to start by doing a bid process. If the rec board allows us to get an extension on the grant, start the bid process for recarpet. If we don't receive any bids, then we would go out to bid the resurfacing of the tennis courts.
Mayor, just really quickly, my personal thoughts are to try to get the extension, because that's just routine business. They've always been really great. I don't know what their temperature is right now, but I think if you can move forward, that'd be the best thing for our parks.
My note.
That's my
Okay.
thoughts.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, next thing on our agenda, Vice Mayor Wells.
I move to enter into executive session at 11:18 p.m. per Wyoming Statute 164405 to consider or receive any information classified as confidential by law on matters concerning litigation to which the governing body is party or proposed litigation to which the governing body may be a party.
Second.
Been a motion made and seconded to go into executive session, and at 11:18, and I'm not gonna read the rest. Any discussion? Please open online voting.
Online voting is open.
Can we?
Yeah, you
Sign
could.
here.
Online voting is closed. The motion passes with 7 yeas.